the Ministry of External Affairs here in India. And obviously, viewers, the MEA has responded because this is a serious enough issue to warrant its attention. The MEA is not, and let me underline that, not used to giving salutary responses on stories that don't merit attention. Quite clearly, therefore, viewers, this is an important issue for the Indian government. First, listen.
We think this is a propaganda piece designed to push a particular discredited narrative. The bias, a lack of objectivity, and frankly, a continuing colonial mindset is blatantly visible. If anything, this film or documentary is a reflection on the agency and individuals that are peddling this narrative again. It makes us wonder whether about the purpose of this exercise and the agenda behind it. And frankly, we do not wish to dignify such efforts.
Well, as I told you, viewers, our beef with this film is not whether the BBC has chosen to focus on Gujarat 2002 in the first part and any other episode to try and embellish its own conclusions. We don't care if the BBC thinks that it's, and many people think, that it has great credibility. If it thinks that its hard-earned, hard-won credibility can be traded on the anvil of transactional politics, etc., that's their lookout, not ours. We're not standing in judgment of the BBC's journalism. Viewers, we're only looking at the attempts that are being made by an ecosystem in this country to pass off this particular documentary with all its apparent flaws, and there are many, and we will look at that because many people who watched it, including myself, viewers, felt that there are certain unaddressed issues or blatant omissions. But that's, again, some people will say a matter of subjective interpretation, but nonetheless, we'll put them out there. The fact is, viewers, that even the UK Prime Minister has a problem, and the MEA's response comes even as British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak told British Parliament, no less, that he didn't agree with the BBC's characterization, and these are his words, of Prime Minister Modi. Listen in, viewers, to this exchange that took place in the British Parliament. Very, very important.
BBC revealed the Foreign Office knew the extent of Narendra Modi's involvement in the Gujarat massacre that paved the way for the persecution of Muslims and other minorities we see in India today, with senior diplomats reporting that the massacre could not have taken place without a climate of impunity created by Modi, and that he was, in the FCO's own words, directly responsible for this violence. Does the Prime Minister agree with his diplomats in the Foreign Office that Modi was directly responsible, and just what more does the Foreign Office know of his involvement in this grave act of ethnic cleansing?
Of course, we don't tolerate persecution where it appears anywhere, but I'm not sure I agree at all with the characterization that the Honourable Gentleman has put forward.
Characterization. I don't agree with the characterization that this MP has put forth. And what was the MP doing? He was only summing up the conclusions of the BBC's film. Despite this, the opposition in India and members from an active ecosystem that is reflexively antagonistic to Modi have endorsed the BBC's latest endeavor. The backing is particularly ironic and somewhat galling, mostly because it reeks of duplicity. Remember, this is the same ecosystem that dismissed a recently made movie called The Kashmir Files on the 1990 Hindu genocide in Kashmir as propaganda. Clearly, the BBC's film on the riots in Gujarat has found favor with the ecosystem and not the Kashmir Files, because the BBC's conclusions slot in conveniently with their narrative, a narrative which they believe will prove handy before the 2024 elections for them to play to the galleries. Listen in to the opposition's reactions, viewers, tonight.
Mr. Modi knows the contents. And we are told that there are lobbyists hired by this government or appointed by this government to try and stop this film.
देखिए, मैं समझती हूँ कि निष्पक्ष पत्रकारिता, खोजी पत्रकारिता का स्थान लोकतंत्र में होना चाहिए, और यदि वो कुछ लेकर के आ रहे हैं एक सीरीज के रूप में, तो उसके प्रदर्शन में या प्रसारण में कोई रोक भी नहीं लगनी चाहिए।
और बीजेपी को अगर उन्होंने कुछ नहीं किया है तो इसमें डरने वाली क्या बात है? अगर यहाँ सबको अकाउंटेबल बनाया जा रहा है तो अकाउंटेबल होना ये तो गलत बात नहीं है। अगर किसी ने कुछ नहीं किया है तो इसमें डरने की क्या बात है? बीजेपी को डरना नहीं चाहिए।
Now, if you were to watch this film, and it is available, of course, on YouTube, viewers, if you switched it on and watched it, it's about 59 minutes long, the first part of this three-part series of India, the Modi question. You will note that a number of caveats, it begins with a number of caveats about how 30-odd people that were requested to speak didn't speak, and it goes on to sort of unspool all that happened in Gujarat. Now, there are interviews, only really 2 or 3, with those who could putatively speak up for the Bharatiya Janata Party, and one of those interviews is with the BJP leader, former member of Parliament Swapan Dasgupta, senior leader, member of the National Executive, close to Mr. Modi. And we spoke to BJP leader Swapan Dasgupta. As I said, he was interviewed and has been quoted at least 2 or 3 times, if my memory serves me right, over the 59 minutes. He said that the BBC misled him about the subject matter of their film and then proceeded to take his words out of context. He also has a complaint saying that they interviewed him for more than an hour, but then in the end only took about collectively 2 or 3 minutes of his views. Now, of course, the BBC is entitled to pick and choose whatever it wants, and that's quite standard. But if he has been misled on the subject matter, then that could be problematic, viewers. But first, listen in to Swapan Dasgupta.
That when I was told about this documentary, I was told there was going to be a film being made. They were making a documentary on India under Modi, where they would also look, incidentally, where it was also look at his relationship with the 2002 Gujarat riots. Now, as things turn out, this was essentially, the first part was essentially only about the 2002 riots, which certainly was not, I didn't feel that was part of the original idea. Now, it was a very fairly exhaustive interview which they took of me. I think it went on for about an hour, which covered various things about what present, the CAA, Article 370, etc., a lot of them. Maybe some of those will be incorporated in subsequent episodes. Now, what I felt about my interventions on the Gujarat riots was that, they were taken in as a sort of pro forma of another view. It was just a sort of pro forma, and here there are some people who have another view, so a couple of sentences from me were just sort of incorporated in that. Where the main thrust of the argument was that, Modi is guilty, etc., That was their thing. I mean, I get the feeling it was a hatchet job which they were trying.
Now, viewers, Times also spoke to a British MP in the House of Lords who was highly critical of the BBC. Listen in.
This documentary is a very short-sighted, has no vision. It doesn't look at a bigger picture. This event took place 20 years ago. Indian judiciary tried, tested everything, and Mr. Modi was exonerated. Now he is the most powerful prime minister and the most respected prime minister in the world. What do? They cannot rise above him. So what they do, they try to dig some dirt and to throw mud at it. But this is not going to affect India or Prime Minister Modi.
Viewers, a number of those who are very familiar and covered the Gujarat incident have watched this documentary and claim that it drifts from the facts significantly. Now, these are observations, viewers, that we've put together on the basis of their assessments. The first issue, which presumes to be problematic, viewers, is that it prevaricates on the culpability of Muslims in the Godhra train carnage. It refers to this incident, but then leaves it very inconclusive whether it was Muslims who actually burnt car sevaks in that ill-fated train, despite the fact that certain individuals have been jailed for this act, viewers. So despite covering this, saying that it was alluded to, it doesn't definitively state that there are individuals who went to jail for this. The second issue that many people are flagging as problematic is that it calls the violence ethnic cleansing, but glosses over the death of 254 Hindus in the very same riots, viewers. It disregards the Supreme Court verdict on the 2002 Gujarat riots. It incidentally mentions it, but not significantly, doesn't go into the reasons why Mr. Modi or others were exonerated of all the charges that were leveled against him and the others. Ignores that many rioters have been pronounced guilty or left apparently feeling that no justice has been done. It ignores that ministers in Modi cabinet were jailed post the riots. Originally, viewers, if you remember, the courts even held guilty certain members of Modi's cabinet. They served jail terms. Finally, of course, when the matter went up in appeal, they were adjudged not guilty and released. It excludes version of Hindu victims of the Gujarat riots. There is only a passing reference, and only one person is spoken to, but in not a substantive manner. The seventh issue that is being deemed problematic is that it relies on the testimony of Sanjeev Bhatt, but doesn't disclose his links via his wife to the Congress party. Doesn't suggest that he was ever a member of the Congress party. The eighth issue that is being flagged up suggests victimization of Teesta, Srikumar and Bhatt was sent to jail, happened, but it doesn't say that this is despite the Supreme Court verdict indicting them for conspiracy, or goes into why they were indicted, viewers. So it appears that they are being jailed today out of a sense of meanness. Surely, viewers, as the Supreme Court said, and I have what the Supreme Court said right here, surely falsifying information to subject an individual to years and years of scrutiny and, of course, malignant characterization is an offense. And if these people are going to be prosecuted for that, then where is the revenge? And if the courts especially have sanctioned it, then where is the vendetta? Where is the revenge? That seems a bit odd. Let's open this up, viewers, because I think we need to have a conversation tonight on this. I would like to, of course, begin with Dr. Ranganathan, but I'm tempted first, if you don't mind, Doctor, to bring in Congress leader Lokesh Jindal. Now, he's a man of great eloquence and a person who has often distinguished himself here by being pejorative to the BJP, but sometimes, Jindalji, building your case on questionable facts. But nonetheless, we'll ignore that tonight because we hope that you will come today prepared. Now, there is an aspect of this which I can't seem to understand, Lokesh Jindal. Forget for a moment the BBC's inabilities to, at least what is alleged, to separate fact from fiction. I don't want to go down that route right now, but I just want to ask you this. You are very enthused about this movie on the Gujarat 2002, at least the first part of it. Your party and others who are very loyal to you on social media, etc., have all jumped on this opportunity to paint once again Mr. Modi with the brush of a fascist, etc., bloodthirsty, anti-minority, Islamophobe, this, that, the other. But you were not half as charitable to makers of documentaries on the 1990 genocide that some people have actually called an Islamist jihad against Hindus. Why is this selectivity? Can you explain it to our viewers, especially to Sunanda Vashisht, who should be owed an explanation for getting zero justice from your great government, and of course the governments that followed after you, including BJP ones? Lokesh Chandra.
Good evening, Rahul. Rahul, what surprises me is, in the present times, a propaganda movie made by an entertainment industry is considered as a documentary, and a documentary made by a media house, I mean, the reports analyzed by scholars, is now being treated as a propaganda. So, Modi hai to mumkin hai. I mean, I can really see that happening. Because we are relying more upon entertainment to provide us with facts, figures, and what had happened before, rather than media houses that have been for generations, that are the fourth pillar of democracy and that are coming up with facts. Secondly, when BBC has come out with certain findings, it has put forth certain facts and figures into the light. It is establishing a truth. The way should be that these truths must be countered if at all the government has certain basis to it. It must come out with certain reasonable arguments as to why it does not accept it, rather than putting a picture that a particular individual like Narendra Modi is infallible, he's invincible, he can do no wrong. Now, such forms of narratives are propaganda, not this particular documentary. I would again say that this documentary is the work, the fourth pillar of democracy. Media house is doing its job. Every action of the state is subjected to the scrutiny of the media. And that's how democracy ought to function. So rather than accusing BBC, Kapil Mishra calling it a jihadist mouthpiece now, because it has simply brought certain facts to notice, rather than tagging it in this particular manner, the BBC and other media houses, they must be encouraged to do their job so that individual liberty, civil liberty, humans' lives, they can be safeguarded. Last one point I would like to make here. See, there's a saying that behind every great fortune, there is a great crime. And 2002 had a certain, had this particular idiom very much put into place in the Indian political history. And we all know how a particular person who became the chief minister just 3 months ago and who was preparing for the upcoming elections in November 2002 went on to win it, and then history was scripted. It's time that the people of India, people of the world, know what the truth was. And Times now, as a media house, as a responsible media house, must stand by other media houses and must ensure that truth is known to the masses at large.
Have I called for a blackout of this film? No. Please go ahead and watch it. Take your popcorn with you. You might find it useful. If nothing else, to prevent your teeth from gnashing against each other. But let me just say very clear. 1 second. 1 second, Mr. Pai, 1 second. I'll get everybody. Just hold your horses. Give me 30 seconds, please. I just want to make one point. Viewers, I'm not surprised by the Congress's reaction. Notice how a whole genocide is dismissed as propaganda based on fakery, falsehood. I don't blame them, because Rahul Gandhi has invited those who have for years been denying the genocide in Kashmir to march with him as he stumbles through Kashmir. So I'm not surprised at all. Mehbooba Mufti, Farooq Abdullah, who were there, very much there, viewers, when that genocide took place. So it's okay. As I said, Times Now has no problem with what the BBC does. They can go out there and screen this particular film in every cinema hall. They can come here, pay us, and we'll carry the movie, no problems. Should pay us a good amount. We'll do it because our rates are very high, our advertorial rates. They can, no problems. Absolutely zero. But viewers, if there are deficiencies, we're not calling them out. It's the British Prime Minister and members of the British Parliament, at least a section of them, that are calling them out. If the British Prime Minister doesn't stand with the product of an organization that is partly funded by the Foreign Office, then there must be a problem. Dr. Ranganathan, am I right or am I wrong? There might be a problem, I don't know.
Good evening, Rahul. Look, the only thing lower than the credibility of the BBC is the intelligence of its journalists. They are supposed to be fair and balanced, but sadly, they exhibit as much fairness as a Pakistani umpire and as much balance as a drunk auntie on stilettos with a dodgy hip walking a greased tightrope without an assist pole. The BBC, Rahul, is a methane-spewing landfill of lies, fraud and selectivity. And every now and then, the methane self-combusts and the putrid smell is all pervasive. You must also realize that these fraudsters are the dregs of the society, unemployable and surviving only because the clueless, bankrupt Brits are forced to throw some pennies in their piss pot. Look, you need to counter any fraud on two fronts. Expose what is being said and expose who is saying it. First, on who is saying it, and unlike the previous panelist who ranted on his opinion, I am going to give you 27 facts in 3 minutes flat, so please brace up for it. As I said, the BBC is a factory of fraud and fake news. Let me just give you a few examples out of hundreds. In 2018, BBC pulled down its report on Indian fake news because the report itself carried fake news. In 2016, it retracted its report claiming a protest march against a Syria bombing in Syria attacked an MP's house. In 2011, it apologized to Primark for a fictitious child labor Bangalore story. In 2015, it published the fake claim that India was funding MQM. In 2010, it apologized for its fake reports claiming Live Aid charity money was used in Ethiopia to buy weapons. In 2011, it retracted its fake news that a dog was stoned to death in Israel. In 2015, it retracted its fake news of a Nigerian hotel serving human meat. From spurious Rwandan genocide documentary to a blatantly one-sided coverage of the recent 2020 Delhi riots, to blaming Hindu hierarchy for Muslims raping a Dalit, to claiming Kaziranga poachers were actually victims of state apartheid, to EVM hacking conspiracies, to spreading fake news about a Sikh policeman getting death threats for saving a Muslim, to calling Burhan Wari a terrorist, a rebel leader. The Beeb has done it all for the sake of propaganda. Now let me come to what is being said. Well, to begin with, these gits don't even realize that Modi has been given a clean chit by none other than the Supreme Court. And when the BBC talks of Modi being anti-minority, let me give this turnip some facts. Minorities before 2014, 20,000 skill trained, 5% with government jobs, 3 crore scholarships, 70% girls school dropout rate. Minorities after 2014 when Modi took over, 2 million skill trained, 10% with government jobs, 5 crore scholarships, free UPSC coaching, 30% girls school dropout rate, while our Muslim population is 14.2%, as many as 31.3% of homes under Awas Yojana, 33% of funds under Kisan Samman Nidhi, 36 beneficiary under Mudra Yojana have been Muslims. Pradhan Mantri Shadi Shagun scheme exclusively for Muslim girls who complete their graduation before marriage. They will get 51,000, no question asked. Housing, skilling, scholarships, government jobs. No other Prime Minister has comparatively done more for Muslims than Modi. Finally, Rahul, just 30 seconds. On the BBC's generic trope of scared minorities, here I admit it is bang on. Because in Modi's India, all we see are Dara hua Musalmans perpetrating 180 documenting hate crime attacks, lynchings, attempted lynchings against Hindus, Dalits and non-Dalits. From Jammu, where Dara hua Musalmans are shouting from the tops of mosques that they will behead Nupur Tiwari. To Hubli, where Dara hua Musalmans are pouring onto streets because some Hindu kid photoshopped a Bhagwa flag. From Mumbai, where Dara hua Musalmans are gathering for the funeral of the terrorist Yabu Rahman. To Assam, where Dara hua Musalmans are burning down a police station. All we see are Dara hua Musalmans. So the BBC is absolutely right. Modi is driving at minorities here. The BBC stands for Big British Cesspool.
Okay.
And Rahul, it is unfortunate
Ravi Srivastava.
one part of the
Ravi Srivastava, calm down.
interrupted me.
Calm down. I want to bring in Mohandas Pai.
We are not on the subject, sir.
What is your problem?
Nonsense altogether.
Ravi Srivastava,
What is your problem?
I gave you 27 facts.
Calm down, calm down.
In all your life, you haven't collected
Calm
27
down.
facts.
What's your problem? Ravi Srivastava, please. I can't hear you. You're shouting.
At least moderate the show.
I can't even hear him. What am I going to moderate? He's just ranting. What am I supposed to respond to? I can't hear him.
Challenge you to refute even one
Gentlemen,
fact I gave, Ravi Srivastava.
gentlemen, calm down. 1 second. Let me bring in. Let me 1 second. 1 second. Let me bring in Mohandas Pai, Nilanjan Das. All are dying to speak. Let me bring in everybody. Just relax. Calm down. Sir, if you're going to speak over each other, I'm not going to hear anybody. Please. I have limitations. My hearing is not as good as yours. If Nilanjan Das, you can tell me anything that Ravi Srivastava has said, I'll give you a prize tonight. Because I couldn't hear him.
No, could you understand whatever Mr. Anand Ranganathan has just said?
What has he said?
What language did
No,
I use? Nilanjan?
has he said
Bengali?
anything which is on the subject? Does he know the subject?
I think he's talked about his problems with the BBC and how he doesn't believe the BBC is credible enough to even commentate.
That is a different.
If you think it
that
is
is a
fine.
different
I
subject.
just want to ask you a very simple question,
You're talking
Nilanjan
about
Das.
the documentary.
1 second, 1 second. Nilanjan Das, a very simple question. Very
Why
simple
is he so
question.
rattled?
Yeah, don't be rattled. Just calm down, everybody. Relax. We are Indian taxpayers. We don't contribute a dime to the BBC. So relax. It's not our money that is going up in smoke. So relax. That's what I'm saying. Why are you getting so hysterical, taking up cudgels for the BBC? It's his view. Does he not have a right to have a view on the BBC if he thinks it's a cesspool?
No, what is he talking about the Indian Muslims?
What's he saying?
Why don't you?
You didn't hear.
What's he saying?
You didn't even hear.
I couldn't hear because Ravi Srivastava is speaking.
No, because you
I
are
can't
allowing.
hear. Excuse
you
me.
Are allowing
Nilanjan Das, I can't hear anything.
I don't know who this guy is.
Nilanjan Das, I told you I couldn't hear.
Who this dynasty don't
1 second, gentlemen, I'm lowering everyone's faders. I can't hear if Ravi Srivastava is going to shout over Dr. Anand Ranganathan. And I'm telling you right now, I don't have ultra sensitive ears like a bat. I can only hear when one person speaks. So if you have a problem, Nilanjan Das, please tell me what he said because I couldn't hear it. So you want to respond to him, you please do.
No, he is clearly demonizing the Indian Muslims. So I don't want to qualify whatever this man has said.
Okay.
I would not
Dr.
repeat.
Ranganathan, are you demonizing Indian Muslims? And if that is so, that is not right. So tell us how you're doing it.
How am I demonizing Indian Muslims when I talk about Indian Muslims on the rooftops of Jammu Mosque asking for Nupur Tiwari to be beheaded?
Sharma.
Are you smoking
Nupur
the same
Sharma.
thing that Rahul Gandhi is smoking? Nilanjan Das, where are you from? Are you from India or are you from England? Then you don't know Indian news. Am I lying that Muslims burned down an Assamese police station? Am I lying that in
do you know the subject of the discussion?
Lower everyone else's
Do you know
faders.
the subject of
demonizing
the
Indian
discussion?
Muslims?
Nilanjan Das
Do you have the guts to
and
answer
1
this?
second, Dr. Ranganathan going off against each other. Yes, let's put them out there. Yes.
Who are these guys?
Nilanjan Das,
You
pick
are
a
a
hole
fair
in
bet
what
player.
Dr. Ranganathan is saying because you made a serious
No,
charge
I'm not
against
going
him.
to respond to him.
No, please, because you made a serious charge and he can sue you.
No, I did
so
not
make
make any
No,
serious
I'm
charge.
sorry, you can't
should-
gaslight. You can't gaslight Dr. Ranganathan and run away from this show. Not right. Respond.
Rahul, if I were to sue
I am
turnips
only
like
going to
Nilanjan
speak on the
Das,
subject. I am only going to
how
speak
can
on the
they be
subject.
more bankrupt than they already are? So I'm not going to
I
sue
am
this guy.
only going to speak
Let
on the
him, Let him
subject.
spread his lies.
Please.
Let him keep
No,
spreading
I'm not
lies.
going to become a
But
platform
I
for
tell you
anyone's
one thing.
lies. Nilanjan
No, but
Das,
Rahul, I tell you one thing.
if you
Rahul,
can't, no,
please.
you have to qualify. You have to tell me you have made a very serious allegation
I gave
against Dr.
27
Ranganathan.
facts.
You need to tell us what he has said
gave
that is wrong.
27 facts.
Please.
I gave
Please put it out there.
Demonized the Muslims, and I'm not going to.
No, you
I
tell us.
gave
what
Tell
I
us
have
how.
said.
Tell us how.
No, you can.
Tell us
go-
how.
you can-
Look,
you
I
can-
couldn't hear anything as I've said because you people were shouting over Dr. Ranganathan, so I couldn't hear
not.
him.
Please,
So
I
you
did
need to
not.
tell us in public interest. What did he say?
Rahul, please,
He has
Rahul,
just
please
repeated it.
stop.
What did he say?
Just repeated it.
What did he say?
No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to. repeat
You're
what
not
he
going to.
said.
So you
Rahul, can I
will
stop on it?
dog whistle. You will dog
you
whistle
let
on
me
TV.
speak on the subject?
You will dog whistle on TV.
Rahul,
You will
will
lie
you
on
let me
TV. You
speak
will
on the
no.
subject?
You will make slanderous accusations against somebody without backing them
No,
up.
no, I'm not.
Viewers,
No,
please
no, no.
note this, man. I'm not going to entertain this. Either you tell us what
You
was said that
are
was objection. I couldn't hear it.
The rant.
I couldn't hear
Mr.
it.
Ranganathan
You have a
just
problem
did.
with someone's rant? No, hang on. You have a problem with someone's rant? That's your problem.
No, you should moderate that.
I can't hear. I've told you.
Rahul,
if people are going to shout over him, I can't hear. I can't hear.
Rahul,
Okay, then go back and replay whatever
So you have a
said.
problem. You have a problem with what somebody says, for how much time somebody says. That's ridiculous.
Of course I do.
Of course. So
You are
the
not
timing
letting
is the
me
problem,
speak.
viewers.
You
He
are
wants
not
X
letting me
person to
speak,
only
Rahul,
speak for
on
a
the
minute. Now I'm
subject.
not going to get into all of this. I'm not going to get into
Will
all
you
of
let
this.
me speak on the subject?
No, I'm not going to
Rahul,
allow you, sir,
honestly,
to get away with a scurrilous
can I please,
accusation
Rahul?
against somebody without substantiating it. You need to substantiate it. Serious charge.
Rahul, can I come in
Substantiate
here?
it. Substantiate.
Can I
Yes,
come in?
Dr. Ranganathan, please
Rahul,
come in.
Rahul,
Your
haven't
fair
we
name is
had-
being dragged across the
You
coast.
have to understand.
No,
that I'm
this is
only
what
here to
these
speak
guys.
on the subject.
Rahul, can I please come in? Can you mute this guy
No,
like
no,
his
no.
career? Yes.
He won't be muted. Please tell
Rahul,
me. Yeah.
Rahul, we've already had problem with Pathan one song. I don't want to expose this guy any further. CBFC will be after me. He's already been exposed. Please understand. This guy thought he will come to earn a few pennies on this show without any preparation whatsoever. I gave 27 verifiable facts. 27. Because I prepare for my debates. I don't come like this guy having a pan. अपना खा के चला आया. अरे बोलो, refute करो facts को. This is not your some internal Maoist or urban Naxal gathering where you can shout and scream. Tell me, refute the facts I have given, Nilanjan Das. Or go back to the Partha Sarthi rock where you crawled out from.
This is clearly the
Tell
point.
me
I'm
how
not going
I
to
have
speak on
demonized
those
any
issues. I'm not
community.
going to speak on issues.
I'm not going to speak because I don't understand
whatever you're
anything.
saying.
I can't
You are not
comprehend.
talking
I'm
about-
homeschooled.
You are not talking
I'm
about
homeschooled.
documentary.
That is why.
You haven't even
I
watched the
talked
documentary.
about the BBC.
You
I
haven't
exposed
watched the
the
documentary.
BBC's its lies. I exposed the documentary and its lies. I exposed
you didn't
every
talk words about
single
the
nook and
documentary.
corner.
You
You have
know.
nothing to say.
You have
You are like
come unprepared.
Let me ask him.
You don't know anything
Nilanjan
about
Das,
the
let me ask you.
Must this
Have you
go
seen
on?
the documentary, Nilanjan Das?
No, I did not. No, I did not. I don't wish
Then
to
leave
speak.
the show right now. You're not qualified to talk. That means your every word here is subjective.
Yes.
Thank you very much for conceding that point. You
Off
can leave.
go.
Thank you.
Off you go.
Off you go. Sorry. Person doesn't come here prepared. Starts then. Mohandas Pai starts then to slander another panelist in a
Rahul.
disgusting manner. Yes,
Rahul.
Mohandas Pai, I just want to ask you a very specific question. Are you today attacking a media organization for its journalism, which it's entitled to do because it's its own credibility on the line, it's taking a risk? Or are you questioning the opposition for amplifying selectively only narratives which may or may not be true? In this particular case, I can tell you there are problems with the narrative too. I'm not going there. Just simply asking you, Mr. Pai, your grouse is with an opposition that latches on to any bit of foreign propaganda to score a few brownie points and appease
Rahul,
the communities that it thinks vote for it. Is that the fact, or is there something
Rahul.
other agenda that you brought here, Mr. Pai?
Rahul, I have 2 points. One is the fake narrative created by this BBC organization without any data, without any facts. When the Supreme Court of India over the last 20 years has gone into great details, heard all parties, given a very, very detailed, reasoned judgment which exonerates Prime Minister Modi from all the charges brought by all the people who have been quoted there. When the Supreme Court of India has done that, the BBC carries on a fake narrative by telling a lot of lies which have been turned out to be lies by the Supreme Court. Now, if the Supreme Court of India is lesser than the BBC, the people who think the BBC is higher are clearly demented. Now, I have a problem with Indians who come on a TV channel to support the BBC when it's carrying on a fake narrative, when the Supreme...
Okay, we seem to have lost Mohandas Pai. Lokesh Jindal, let me bring you back.
If they want to support the BBC, which is carrying a fake narrative, it shows the demented state of mind they are and the hate mongers they turn out to be. You have to trust the Supreme Court.
Let's ask some basic questions tonight, viewers.
These are people who are irrational, hate mongers, who just want to go behind a foreign media, which is running a fake narrative, and these people have no sense of values. That's all we say about these people.
Let me ask. Basic question to you, Lokesh Jindal and Ravi Srivastava, please. Let's not shout over each other. Columnist Sunanda Vashisht is also there. Please. Let's be calm. Lokesh Jindal, I want to ask you, who set up the SIT to look into Mr. Modi's purported involvement in the Gujarat 2002 riots? Can you tell us?
But who was nominated as the member? It was only after when opposition mounted that Nanavati was also included in the SIT committee's
Sir, I'm asking you,
team.
the SIT was appointed by whom?
It was by the BJP government in 2002.
My gosh.
My God, my God, my God, it's appalling. My God, appalling.
Mr. Jindal is a lawyer.
He's a lawyer. Oh my God, he's a lawyer.
Oh my God.
Wait.
Oh my
Sunanda,
God.
if you ever need a lawyer, may I please recommend Mr. Jindal?
Yes.
No, I do need one. I need one to constantly appear. Actually, I need somebody to constantly appear for me in the state of Bengal. Maybe I should send him there. He'll be a great sacrifice.
It was the Supreme Court. I'm so sorry. It was just it was
no,
Supreme
sir,
Court. I'm so sorry.
Actually,
No,
I don't even want to. I don't know what to do tonight.
No. I'm so sorry.
I bow before thee. I bow before you.
That was a mistake. That was a mistake. Yes, please carry on. Please carry on.
It does
No,
not
carry on with what? You know, there was a series called Carry On.
Carry on up the Khyber.
Yes.
Now, it was a comedy show. So I don't really know where to begin. Because if you are in denial about such verifiable facts,
And
then
Rahul,
we have a problem.
Can I please add here? Until 2 years ago, the same
Wait, Rahul.
Can I say,
the point
Mr.
is.
Jindal,
Wait a
Lokesh
minute.
is a good friend. No, Lokesh, 30 seconds. Lokesh, please, 30 seconds. You're a very good friend. You're a very dear friend. And you know, all these, kind of tutu mame aside, let me tell this publicly to Rahul Shivshankar that till as late as 2 years ago, the same Lokesh Jindal, who is a good friend, he was peddling this false narrative that Modi talked about action and reaction. That the army reached after 3 days. That Modi was told Raj Dharm ka palan hona chahiye. These are the 3 things that Lokesh Jindal said as late as 2 years ago.
Let me tell
All
you,
3 are fake.
Let me remind you what
All
I said.
3 are fake.
On 27th of
please don't
February,
interrupt.
when the Parsevats... No, listen to me.
Lokesh, this is unfair. This is unfair.
This is
unfair. This is unfair. Please allow me. Because I remember you saying that Modi talked about this action and reaction without you disclosing the last 10 seconds of what Modi said. और मैं चाहूंगा कि ना action हो और ना reaction हो, इसकी प्रतिक्रिया ना हो. That you conveniently missed out. When Atal Bihari Vajpayee said to Modi, मैं चाहता हूं कि राज धर्म का पालन होना चाहिए, then you missed out what Modi said. वही तो कर रहे हैं साहब. And you missed out what Vajpayee said. Yes, मुझे विश्वास है कि आप वही कर रहे हैं. So half truths were peddled, and the same half truths are being peddled by BBC.
Let me tell you what exactly was the story. When Prime Minister...
No, just 1 minute. Lokesh Jindal, let's not waste each other's time. Okay, please. You have proven your bona fides as being completely clueless on the basic facts. Now let me tell you, viewers, that Mr. R.K. Raghavan headed the SIT. It was appointed in 2009 by the Supreme Court. This was a court-monitored investigation. The SIT summoned Mr. Modi and then Home Minister of Gujarat, Mr. Amit Shah. They interrogated them for long hours, and then the SIT viewers subsequently, a decade after the riots, in 2012 or so, very much when the UPA was in power, submitted its report to say that there was no prosecutable evidence, quote unquote, against Modi. Now, viewers, let me tell you something. That at that very time, the Supreme Court made a very telling observation about the UPA. It said that the CBI under the UPA was a caged parrot. The inference is not just limited to the CBI. One could suggest that all agencies, by extension of logic, would have been caged parrots. So the bulk of the investigation happens under UPA years. It could very well. Since it did not like Mr. Modi, from 2007, Sonia Gandhi called Mr. Modi a maut ke saudagar Sunanda Vashisht, if I am not wrong. Clearly had no sympathies for Mr. Modi, who also did not have many sympathies for the Congress. Bitter relationship. They had no incentive to let Mr. Modi or Amit Shah off the hook, did they? Especially when their own government lobbied with international governments to prevent a elected chief minister of a state from going abroad. The antipathy was so great, unheard of, unprecedented. And if they couldn't find prosecutable evidence, viewers, what does it tell you? I don't want to be a cynic here. What does it tell you? Sunanda Vashisht, what does it tell you about Lokesh Jindal? What does it tell you about the Congress?
In fact, when I heard Lokesh Jindal doing his first monologue, I was going to ask him, does he even live in India? Because he asked you a question that he deserves, apparently, quote unquote, deserves to know the truth about Gujarat. Well, we do know the truth about Gujarat. Does he not live in India? Does he live under a rock or something? And today, he is not there as spokesperson of Congress. Clearly, he is a spokesperson of BBC. And to me, there is no difference between the two. He is speaking on behalf of the BBC, which is fine. I mean, when you are a spokesperson of the Congress, you do become spokesperson of the foreign media. That is totally antithetical to India, and that's completely okay. But Rahul, I want to just give me 30 seconds. I have waited. This seems so ironic and tragic that we should be discussing BBC today of all days. Today is 19th January. 33rd anniversary of the shameful day when Kashmiri Pandits like myself were threatened from mosques and men were told to leave their women folk behind. We know this. Till today, I have not seen one report that has come without bias from BBC on Kashmir, and BBC has reported extensively on Kashmir. In fact, you'll be hard-pressed to find BBC call jihadis terrorists even to this day. They still call them unidentified gunmen, and even after it has been repeatedly been told and proven that Pakistan illegally holds POK, they use their shameless style guide referring to Kashmir as India-administered Kashmir. Even after 75 years of independence and being a progressive, stable, secular in real sense, multi-ethnic democracy, BBC holds nothing but contempt for India. And the reason behind this contempt is what MEA spokesperson today clearly said. It is the racist ideology that motivated their evil empire. They cannot believe, they think that the uncivilized pagan natives like us need white masters for meaningfully exploiting our abilities and resources for the betterment of their society and their economy. So after our masters left us in 1947, which BBC doesn't remember, they feel that we are bound to fail in our endeavor to run our own nations. We don't have independent courts. We don't know how to run our country. So BBC will hold an investigation on what is clearly an Indian about our domestic issue. Their diplomats will come and hold an investigation. For what? Our courts have already talked about this. This is a noisy democracy. For years, we have talked about 2002. And for years, this has been settled. Lokesh Jindal may not have heard it, but for years, we have talked about this.
Okay.
So, I also want to point out that BBC and British establishment still don't express remorse about the atrocities done by their erstwhile evil empire throughout the world, including in India. So today it would be really too much to think that, they cannot believe that India is doing much better than what we were when we were enslaved by them. Today, India is 5th largest economy and we have beaten Britain at that, and they cannot believe it. So hence these reports are coming.
Well, let me tell
BBC,
you, there is a moment.
Just 10 seconds. BBC states facts because I have watched the documentary. You were asking earlier, have you watched the documentary? I did. They state facts, but a few facts, and they point a very narrow picture of the grand subject. The reason again behind this is this few hundred-year-old racist ideology that they have institutionalized within their organization. And last point, the country that does not even teach colonial history in their schools should not be lecturing us about human rights. First, let them teach their own history to their own students in their own schools. They don't have the guts to do that.
Well, I suppose if the BBC starts referring to Ireland and Scotland as British administered Ireland and Scotland, they would go a long way in correcting the narrative.
Absolutely.
Human rights, apologists for the British government and its atrocities everywhere across the world. It was a very telling moment. And that interview was dismissed. That interview was dismissed. Yeah, Dr. Ranganathan, give me 30 seconds. As an interview where Mr. Modi was being menacing. So stating facts is menacing. Dr. Ranganathan is holding something up and I want to bring in Ravi Srivastavaji. Yes.
No, this has been a litany of my good friend Mr. Jindal not knowing facts. I wonder whether he knows this fact, that the only time the BBC has been thrown out of India for 2 years was by the Congress.
Please, allow me to come in over here.
Okay, Raviji, let me bring in Raviji. Raviji, let me please listen to my question, then please respond. Now, I know you have watched this documentary. I know that you come prepared. I just want to ask you a question, sir. Yes, there is a reference to statements made by Sanjeev Bhatt and Haren Pandya. You know that. And you also know what they said. They said that they had met Mr. Modi. They were part of a meeting. They were privy to utterances made by the then Chief Minister, who said, let's do nothing as Gujarat burns. Now, viewers, let me read out what the Indian Supreme Court, after having gone through the entire evidence on record, has said. And then, Mr. Srivastava, once I read this out and frame my question on the back of it, you can have all the time in the world. The Supreme Court of this country says, we hasten to add, that it is only because of the ultra-sensational revelation projected by Mr. Sanjeev Bhatt and Mr. Haren Pandya, who unabashedly claimed to be privy to the utterances made by the then Chief Minister in official meeting, the constitutional functionaries and this court was required to move into action, taking serious note of the same. But after thorough investigation by the SIT, which of course, Lokesh Jindal will tell you, was set up by the BJP in 2002 and not the Supreme Court in 2009, the falsity of such claim has been fully exposed on the basis of credible, indisputable materials collected by the SIT during the investigation in that regard. Now, Ravi Srivastavaji, the BBC hangs its entire thesis on a secret report that it claims has appeared for the first time in public domain, prepared by certain British High Commission officials who are taken on record but not identified, as describing what happened in Gujarat as ethnic cleansing. Now, sir.
Rahul.
Now, sir, Srivastavaji, let me ask you a question. Okay, ठीक है, चलो आप बोल दीजिए, छोड़िए, मैं अपना सवाल नहीं पूछता, चलो आप बता दीजिए.
We have talked about everything. And the entire parallel proved that the BBC is a discredited media. Fine. If BBC is a discredited media, then why we are discussing about that? Now, second thing is that we have not talked about everyone. We have not talked about the Jack Straw's report, where the British inquiry was done in the Gujarat riots here. And he has said that Mr. Modi did not prevent the riots from happening. Now, legal things are one part. You have read everything. The Supreme Court report, the Supreme Court trial is there, SIT is there, everything is there. But then this particular thing cannot be, sidelined. Another thing, in that same interview which you are referring to, where the reporter was asking several questions on human rights and other things, how much Mr. Modi's body language, how much he was rattled. And the last question which she asked, that Mr. Modi, what we will do if you come forward again, you become a prime minister of this country or whatever it is. He said, I'll first set the media right.
No, he didn't talk about prime minister, sir. You're lying on record. The question was asked, what is it that you are, what is it that you, one second. Srivastavaji, please play that tape back again. You're lying about the facts. What was asked, please let me finish this on record. Viewers, you can take me apart. I'm putting this statement out. The question was to this effect. What do you regret about the past few months or weeks or days? He says, I regret that I did not handle the media properly. He didn't talk about when he would become prime minister, etc., etc. So this is again scurrilous attempt, viewers, to try and suggest that there is a stranglehold on the media. When on the same media, this same media, viewers, Times Now, etc., there are enough people like Lokesh Jindal, Ravi Srivastava, who call the prime minister evil names daily. And it is all allowed. But I find it very, very strange that we are putting so much faith. As I said, I'm not here questioning the BBC journalism, viewers. I'm talking about the opposition's naivety. So much faith in the BBC that still calls Kashmir Indian-administered Kashmir. The one way we can stop all this nonsense, viewers, is by officially all of us referring to Ireland and Scotland. The Indian media should do it as British-administered Ireland and Scotland. I challenge all my media contemporaries to start doing that because I think we should. What do you say, Dr. Ranganathan, Sunanda Vashisht?
Really started by writing, Rahul.
Yeah, doctor.
Yeah, no, a couple of points, Rahul. No, absolutely. I would go further and say English administered Ireland. That would rile them a bit further. But as far as Raviji, his logic saying that if you believe the BJP has no credibility, why are you talking about it? Well, with the same logic, Raviji, I'm sorry, but you hardly ever make sense. But yet I'm listening to you, right? Now, as to the other fact,
that's your problem, not mine.
No.
That's your problem, not mine.
Sorry,
yeah, so precisely that's what BBC. Good, let's have a good laugh about it. But the fact of the matter is that Rahul, please don't accuse Raviji of lying because he is a co-founder of Aam Aadmi Party. The fact.
God.
Yeah. So no.
Okay. Well, honestly. Well, well, I'm running out of time, gentlemen. I'm running out of time. The fact is, viewers. The fact is, we can't be selective about the narratives we endorse. To be careful. We have to be inquiring and questioning. People with all sorts of agendas can plant information. Elections today, viewers, are very sensitive to this kind of stuff, disinformation. You know what has happened in America. Propaganda tore through people's computers, was forwarded through Facebook to people's homes. It affects outcomes. I'll leave it at this.
The smartphone category in India is anyway popular, right? उसमें भी जो 20 से 25 हजार वाले स्मार्टफोन्स हैं वो और भी ज्यादा पॉपुलर हैं। शायद इसीलिए इन्फिनिक्स ने आज अपना 020 स्मार्टफोन लॉन्च कर दिया है। I have the smartphone with me right here और इसको आज करेंगे unboxing. Hi, you're watching Gadget Time. This is me, Padmaja, and it's time for me to unbox this device और देखते हैं फोन में आपको क्या-क्या contents दिखाई देंगे. Let's wait. फोन अनबॉक्स हो चुका है। जैसे कि आपने देखा यहाँ पर स्टिकर उतारते हुए मैंने इसे थोड़ा सा गंद मचा दी। यहाँ पे स्टिकर ऑलरेडी दिखाई दे रहा है, बट इसको क्लीन करेंगे बाद में। अभी बात करेंगे स्मार्टफोन के बारे में। थोड़ा सा मुझे विड्थ इसका ज्यादा लग रहा है, वो यूज करने के बाद पता चलेगा कि ये कितना कंफर्टेबल है। अदर देन दैट यू गेट 3 कैमराज एट द बैक। इसको आपको मिलेगा स्क्वायरिश कैमरा मॉड्यूल के अंदर। द मेन कैमरा इज 108 मेगापिक्सल और यही इसका यूएसपी है। सिर्फ बैक कैमरास की बात नहीं है बॉस, आपको फ्रंट कैमरा भी बहुत ही धांसू दिखाई दे रहा है। एटलीस्ट ऑन द स्पेक शीट यूज करने पे पता चलेगा कि कितना अच्छा है या नहीं अच्छा है। फ्रंट कैमरा जो इसका है वो आपको मिलता है 60 मेगापिक्सल का फ्रंट शूटर। आपको इसमें दिखाई देगा फुल HD प्लस एमोलेड पैनल। बेजल्स थोड़े से मुझे मोटे दिखाई दे रहे हैं, टॉप और बॉटम वाला स्पेशली। साइड बेजल्स आर स्टिल स्लिम। What keeps this smartphone alive is Helio G99 chipset. बैटरी की बात करें तो इसमें आपको मिलता है 45 वॉट का फास्ट चार्जिंग सिस्टम, which is pretty good. At the bottom, you also get a 3.5 mm headphone jack, and that is very interesting क्योंकि आजकल के फोन में ये आपको बिल्कुल दिखाई नहीं देता है. So you do not have to just rely on your wireless earbuds. आप यहाँ पर अपने वायर्ड हेडफोन्स का भी इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं. स्पीकर के साथ आपको मिलता है Type-C पोर्ट, ऊपर की तरफ माइक्रोफोन है, राइट साइड पे आपको मिलता है वॉल्यूम रॉकर और साथ में पावर बटन. लेफ्ट साइड इज प्रीटी क्लीन, लेकिन यहाँ पे आपको मिलता है सिम ट्रे और सिम इंजेक्टर टूल बॉक्स में आपको मिलता है, वो मैं दिखा चुकी हूँ. यहीं पर सिम ट्रे की बात करते करते मेरी नजर गई है फ्रेम पर, विच इज प्रीटी ग्लॉसी. मेटल तो नहीं है, लेकिन ऐसा फील जरूर दे रहा है दैट इट्स मेटल. बाकी ये था मेरा ओवरऑल लुक एट द स्मार्टफोन. अगर आप जानना चाहते हैं कि क्या आपको ये खरीदना चाहिए एट अराउंड ₹20,000-25,000, क्या ये अच्छा ऑप्शन है या नहीं, उसके लिए यू रियली नीड टू स्टे ट्यून्ड टू गैजेट टाइम्स टू फाइंड आउट इट्स फुल रिव्यू. नाउ यू गाइज नो द ड्रिल. लाइक, शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब एंड जस्ट स्टे ट्यून्ड टू गैजेट टाइम्स. थैंक्स फॉर वाचिंग दिस वीडियो.
You clever, you make for more. You wanna pretend you can take me to the top. Yeah, I'd like to see you try. Like to see you try. Get my hands on you. You're gonna turn black, you're gonna turn blue. That's some real bad news. It's not me, it's you.
हेलो एवरीवन, मैं खड़ा हूँ ऑल न्यू BMW M345 X-Drive के बगल में और ये यहाँ पर BMW ने फाइनली इंडिया में लॉन्च कर दी है. क्या डिटेल्स हैं इसके डिजाइन, इसके एक्सटीरियर, इसके इंटीरियर को लेकर, क्या फीचर्स दिए गए हैं, परफॉर्मेंस के आंकड़े क्या है, सभी के बारे में मैं आपसे बात करने वाला हूँ इस वीडियो में. तो डिजाइन की बात करें इन टर्म्स ऑफ एक्सटीरियर, तो फ्रंट में वही स्पोर्टी डिजाइन लैंग्वेज इस M340i में देखने को मिल रही है. ग्रिल में किडनी ग्रिल यहाँ देखने को मिल रहा है विद ग्लॉस बैक एलिमेंट्स एंड LED हेडलाइट्स हैं विद ब्लू एक्सेंट्स यहाँ पे देखने को मिल रहे हैं इसकी हेडलाइट्स में. इसके अलावा बम्पर में जो है वो भी ग्लॉसी ब्लैक का इस्तेमाल करा गया है एंड एयर इनटेक्स भी यहाँ पर देखने को मिल रहे हैं विच गोज बिहाइंड, जो व्हील की तरफ जाते हुए देखते हैं. एंड BMW LED की बैजिंग यहाँ देखने को मिल रही है. इसके अलावा बात करें व्हील्स की, तो व्हील्स जो इसमें दिए गए हैं वो हैं 19 इंच के और 225 सेक्शन के व्हील इसमें फ्रंट पे दिए गए हैं एंड M Sport की बैजिंग यहाँ पर इसके व्हील्स में देखने को मिल रही है.
On the show tonight, viewers.
In a massive shocker, DCW chief Swati Maliwal was allegedly molested and dragged by a car for about 10 to 15 meters after her hand got stuck in the car's window. She was out on an inspection after the Kanjawala hit and drag case. Credit war breaks out over Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Maharashtra. Uddhav Sena claims projects inaugurated by the Prime Minister had been initiated during the MBA era.
Let's get it started here, you know it's game time. Ain't no excuses tolerated why you can't grind. It's like you're on the job, you know that team.
Hello everyone, ये है बजाज की नई पल्सर P150 in case you're wondering. 150 ऑलरेडी मौजूद है, तो इस P वर्जन को लाने का कारण क्या है, मतलब क्या है? सो कारण बहुत सारे हैं. डिजाइन को लेकर, फीचर्स को लेकर और कुछ हद तक परफॉर्मेंस को लेकर भी इस P वर्जन में बदलाव देखने को मिलते हैं. तो क्या है वो सारे बदलाव इस नई पल्सर P150 में, उन सभी के बारे में मैं आपसे बात करने वाला हूं इस रिव्यू के अंदर. और रिव्यू के एंड में बात करेंगे 3 धांसू और 3 नॉट धांसू एलिमेंट्स मुझे क्या लगते हैं इस बजाज पल्सर P150 के बारे में.
Good evening and welcome to the NewsHour. I'm Madhadas Gopalakrishnan. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's a mega times now impact. The campaign for justice for our wrestlers has finally yielded results. Wrestling Federation Chief and BJP MP Brij Bhushan Singh is set to resign on the 22nd of January. National heroes who had hit the streets yesterday in protest against the federation that governs wrestling in the country continued with their stir in the national capital. The protesting champs have alleged that they didn't get a satisfactory response to the government, and if needed, they would approach the police and file a formal complaint as well. They have demanded that the WFI be disbanded. Listen in.
अभी मीटिंग में सिर्फ आश्वासन ही दिया गया है, ऐसा कोई ठोस हमें नहीं बताया गया कि हाँ हम कोई ठोस कदम लेंगे या कोई एक्शन लेंगे, बस आश्वासन दिया गया है, लेकिन उस आश्वासन से हम खुश नहीं हैं। हम जैसा कि बजरंग ने बताया, हम पूरी रेसलिंग फेडरेशन को भंग करवाना चाहते हैं और जितनी भी स्टेट्स हैं वहाँ भी सबकी फेडरेशन मतलब रेसलिंग फेडरेशन जो है वो भंग होनी चाहिए, एक नई शुरुआत होनी चाहिए, एक फ्रेश स्टार्ट होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि हर जगह उनके इंसान फैले हुए हैं। जैसा कि विनेश ने बताया, हर स्टेट में फैले हुए हैं। केरला से लड़कियों के फोन आ रहे हैं, महाराष्ट्र से लड़कियों के फोन आ रहे हैं, वो खुद पीड़िता रही हैं, उनके साथ वो खुद शोषण का शिकार रही हैं। तो आप समझ सकते हो कि हर स्टेट में फैले हुए हैं। तो हम चाहते हैं कि पूरी रेसलिंग फेडरेशन भंग हो।
इस्तीफा लेके तो वो अपने लोगों को ही बिठाएंगे। हम इस्तीफा ना चाहते हुए फेडरेशन को भंग करना चाहते हैं, क्योंकि जो स्टेट की जो संघ है, कुश्ती संघ है जो स्टेटों के हैं, उनमें भी सभी उन्हीं के लोग बैठे हैं जो उन्हीं के इशारे पे काम करते हैं। तो हम इस्तीफा नहीं चाहते, हम फेडरेशन को भंग करना चाहते हैं। हमारी यही मांग है गवर्नमेंट से।
However, some jumped in to hijack the protest, or at least attempt to do so, for political mileage. But the athletes showed them the mirror. CPM leader Brinda Karat, who arrived at the wrestlers' protest site at Jantar Mantar, was asked to step down from the stage by the grapplers, saying that they do not want anyone to give the stir a political color. Take a look at the sequence.
मैडम प्लीज इसको राजनीति मुद्दा ना बनाइए, प्लीज आप नीचे चले जाइए, प्लीज मैडम नीचे चले जाइए, प्लीज आपसे हाथ जोड़ के रिक्वेस्ट है। मैडम प्लीज इसको राजनीति मुद्दा ना बनाइए, प्लीज आप नीचे चले जाइए, प्लीज मैडम नीचे चले जाइए, प्लीज आपसे हाथ जोड़ के रिक्वेस्ट है। मैडम प्लीज इसको राजनीति मुद्दा ना बनाइए, प्लीज आप नीचे चले जाइए, प्लीज मैडम नीचे चले जाइए, प्लीज आपसे हाथ जोड़ के रिक्वेस्ट है। मैडम प्लीज इसको राजनीति मुद्दा ना बनाइए, प्लीज आप नीचे चले जाइए, प्लीज मैडम नीचे चले जाइए, प्लीज आपसे हाथ जोड़ के रिक्वेस्ट है।
Now, the allegations that have been leveled by the wrestlers have been rubbish by Brij Bhushan, who happens to be an incumbent MP from the BJP and a 5-time elected member of parliament. Brij Bhushan Charan Singh has also been the president of the federation for nearly a decade and was elected unopposed for the third time in 2019. The wrestlers have demanded that there should be new coaches appointed for training and the Centre for Training for Wrestlers should be shifted to Delhi. Now, this brings me to the legitimate question that we're asking this evening. Don't our champs deserve better than this?
You're watching the News Hour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
We're going to take this across to our guest. Joining us for more are Vaibhav Agarwal, member of the BJP as well as president of the Yuva India Foundation. We have with us Rakesh Singh, who's a coach and general secretary of the Haryana Wrestling Association. Advocate Prakeet Som is with us. He's a national spokesperson of the JJP. Tehseen Poonawala is a political analyst joining us. And we will also be joined by Hardeep Singh, who's a former Olympic wrestler, and Vikram Yadav, a wrestler as well. But before I go across to all of you panelists, let me quickly bring in some breaking news coming in. Shortly, Sports Minister Anurag Thakur will meet all the wrestlers at his official residence in Delhi and listen to their grievances at 10 p.m. So the Sports Minister, who is outside of Delhi, is rushing back to the national capital. He's going to be meeting with these wrestlers. Is a breakthrough a possibility? And will the government agree to the demand of the wrestlers that the Wrestling Federation be completely disbanded? Is that a suggestion? And is the government willing to walk the talk as far as that suggestion is concerned? Those are going to be some of the questions that we'll know an answer of only once this meeting is concluded. For more on this, let's quickly go across to Karishma as well. In fact, Karishma is just going to be joining us, but a big development indeed. Now the sports minister rushing back to the national capital to meet with the wrestlers. Remember, the wrestlers have been on the streets for the past 48 hours. A second day of protest that has been ended today, and now they are threatening that there would be a third day of protest tomorrow morning. They would even file a police complaint, they are told. They are saying if their grievances are not fulfilled. Let's quickly go across to Karishma for more on this. Karishma, what's on the table? What's on the cards here? What are we likely to see happening at 10 o'clock today? Karishma, can you hear me?
अरे आवाज आ रही.
All right, we'll try and reconnect with Karishma, but very, very important meeting that is to take place in less than an hour from now. In fact, the sports minister, exactly an hour from now, perhaps the sports minister will be meeting with these wrestlers. Let's quickly take this across to our panelists joining us. Let me first and foremost take this across to Tehseen Poonawalla. Tehseen, I want to bring to you the unfortunate spectacle of, and certainly, of course, I'm going to ask the government also, the representatives of those who at least support the BJP, as to what the government has done. But first and foremost, isn't it such an unfortunate spectacle? Brinda Karat arriving there at Jantar Mantar, and she shooed off stage. The only thing worse than the sight of wrestlers, Olympians, Olympic medal winners having to sit on the streets to demand justice is the sight of politicians trying to claim credit by jumping on that same dais on which they are.
Good evening, Madhav. Thank you for having me on the show, and good evening to all my fellow panelists and to all your viewers. And I often say this, Madhav, that the rowdy right and the loony left are like the horseshoe theory, and ultimately they are much closer than far away as you ever think. Here is our wrestlers, our Olympic medals, in this cold, sitting on the streets, fighting for their right, their justice, and a federation which has a BJP MP from the right. And then you have these loony left MP, ex-MP, with a mass base of one person coming there to get herself clicked and to get publicity. Can you believe this? I mean, first, this BJP MP is not being kicked out. He should have been kicked out so there can be a probe. You have Olympic medals saying that, look, we have charges of sexual allegations against a sitting MP who continues to be in power of authority. And then you have a left ex-MP out there for publicity. If you really wanted to support our wrestlers and those who held our tricolour high, the ex-MP should have been in the crowd, standing there quietly without her desperation for publicity. And what's worse is her sidekick who came with her is holding the poster, showing a poster as if they've come out to make some big point. Who are these people? The left is irrelevant. But look, there is only one question, and I'm glad the sports minister has finally woken up from his slumber and he's reaching. If the government of Narendra Modi ji is finished fighting with Supreme Court judges, has finished fighting with all the things that it wants to do, can they come and resolve?
We will take that question across. We will take that question across. And in fact, what exactly is the government doing and why is it taking the government so long is also a very pertinent question. We will in fact take those questions in just a few moments. But my colleague Karishma is joining us and she's going to tell us about that all-important meeting. Before we get into the debate, Karishma, quickly tell us what's expected at 10 o'clock today.
Well, it's absolutely not. Thakur returning from Hamirpur to meet the wrestlers, and he has invited them for dinner at 10 p.m. He is going to meet them. He is going to ask them about the meeting that was held earlier with the sports ministry officials. He is going to ask what their demands are, and of course he's going to give them assurance. Because earlier in the press conference, wrestlers said that they weren't content with what was told for the ministry meeting, but give them fresh assurance and also ask them to call off their protest and not sit at Jantar Mantar, because at the end of the day, it's very shameful to see our Olympians, our Olympic medalists to be sitting on the streets and asking for justice and asking for Anurag Thakur is expected to make them understand, to call off their protest and that their demands will be met.
All right, thanks so much for that update there. All eyes on that meeting that's going to take place at 10 o'clock today as well. But let me quickly take this right back to our guests, and I want to take this across first and foremost to Vaibhav Agarwal. Vaibhav Agarwal, many questions as to what really is happening. And the questions are being asked because it's been 48 hours. Yes, the sports secretary may have met those wrestlers, but certainly their demands have not yet been resolved. They are saying that they want to see something decisive happening. They are asking, of course, for the WFI to be disbanded, but perhaps it's for the government to get in and ensure that there is justice for these wrestlers, because this is causing not just a national embarrassment, it's becoming internationally an extremely shocking story, because where do you have Olympians sitting in this manner demanding justice? Anywhere in the world.
With all due respect, Madhav, thanks for having me on the panel. I mean, I do the formalities, but with all due respect, Madhav, I want to understand, is this discussion about the harassment, sexual harassment that we are looking at to the women players, or we are looking at the corruption or the corrupt motives of the Wrestling Federation of India. We have to clearly draw a line there. Point number one.
How does it matter, sir?
Point number two.
How does it matter? There are both allegations. Why can't both the allegations go hand in hand?
No.
It's wrongdoing of the same set of individuals. If there is wrongdoing by the same set of individuals, why not expose the rot on all ends? Why are the two at opposing ends for you?
If we are expecting me to answer a particular question, you'll have to give me an opportunity to say that without interjecting. Now, that's point number one.
No, please, but I don't know why you're saying that there can only be one and not the other. That's the only point I'm clarifying, but please have your say. Please respond.
I'm trying to understand that does sexual harassment will be finished if the WFI be disbanded?
If the same set of individuals are perpetrating the harassment, then why not?
Madhav, I'm a citizen. I need to ask questions too.
Please ask the questions.
Why am I not being asked? Why am I being snubbed?
I'm just finding it mind-boggling today that you are sitting here on national television saying that sexual harassment will not be ended if this person is removed. Try telling that to the wrestlers.
It's mind-boggling for you what I'm saying, but it's mind-boggling for me what you're saying or what they are saying. So I have the right to present my viewpoint.
No, please. Please do so. But sir, we have wrestlers and I'm going to ask the wrestlers to respond to you. Please present your viewpoint. 30 seconds to you. Please make your point, and I'm then going to get a response from the wrestlers who are listening to what you're saying right now.
Secondly, the Wrestling Federation of India and the other bodies are private bodies. They are not government bodies that the government can get up and take action when there is a complaint. So you have to understand that there are laws that we have to abide. I don't know what other political people or people with other political thinking may have a thought on that, but I'm telling you what law says. The law says that they are a private body, and if the complaint has to be done, the complaint has to be done, and then there's a process according to their body's constitution. The government can interfere, will mount pressure if need be. We will finish the recognition that the Sports Authority of India grants the Wrestling Federation of India. However, beyond that, the government has no control on it. And understand one thing very clearly. Sakshi Malik is a member of the Sexual Harassment Committee of the Wrestling Federation of India. She herself is protesting. Are we saying that the entire Sexual Harassment Committee, and there are some big names on it, you should have gone through it. Are we saying that they are all complicit?
Okay.
No, we are not.
Okay, you made your point. Now you've had your say. Now there's one of our panelists at least has been very vigorously shaking his head. Advocate Pratik Som. He's a national spokesperson of the JJP. Advocate Pratik Som, on multiple points, I mean, I can go on having a discussion with Vaibhav Agarwal, but he says legally there is nothing the government can do. He is also in a sense questioning about whether all other systems have broken down as far as these allegations of sexual harassment are concerned. He even asks, will sexual harassment end if this person goes? Questions that I personally find extremely shocking after the pain and agony of the wrestlers that has been shared in the public domain. But aap jawab dijiye. You made your point, sir. You made your point, sir. Now let others speak. Don't do this. Let others speak. Advocate Pratik Som.
See, I would say this is a very unwarranted statement at this point of time. He must understand that out of the total medal tally which India has achieved in Commonwealth and Olympics, 61% medals have come from wrestlers. Wrestlers of international repute like Fogart, Punia and Sakshi, they are sitting at Jantar Mantar. They don't need such kind of publicity. They already have international repute. There is something which they want to show to this country, which the government and the federation should see. Other point, there is no smoke without fire. When the credible people are making some kind of allegation, a serious investigation should happen. It cannot be the case that it can be a hush-hush affair or meeting, secretaries or the ministers. I would also advise the wrestlers that they should give a complaint to the authorities so that a FIR can be registered and proper investigation can happen. See, we have to see that we are dealing with a situation where our women wrestlers are giving statements कि इस देश में बेटी बनके पैदा नहीं होना चाहिए. This is very unfortunate. हमारे जो खिलाड़ी हैं, हमारे wrestlers हैं, they don't look nice on Jantar Mantar. They should be on the ground. They should be on their mats performing and bringing laurels to India. Haryana is being known by their wrestlers. They are our pride and their all kind of rights should be protected.
Why can't these individuals be arrested, Vaibhav Agarwal? The individuals, perpetrators. What is the Delhi police doing, for instance? There has been a notice that has been issued by the Delhi Commissioner of Women yesterday. It's been 24 hours. What's the legal action that has happened?
I have no authority to comment on that. You'll have to ask Delhi police or the.
You are defending. You are saying what's happening is right. You are questioning the players. You are questioning the wrestling federation. You are saying that is the allegation of sexual harassment correct or not? But yet, when it comes to justice, you do not have an opinion as to how the law and order system in this country works. It's either it's a right thing that has happened or it is wrong.
Let's make it very clear. What Pradeep says is very right. When people with high credibility talk about it, there should be sufficient action. Well, is the guy in discussion with low credibility? I mean, I am not trying to defend anyone.
Have you seen his video in Ranchi, sir?
For all sake, he should be.
Have you seen his video in Ranchi?
That doesn't mean that we have to take away anyone's rights that are being given to
absolutely
him.
Absolutely mind-boggling defenses, Vaibhav Agarwal. But I'm going to. I'm going to come to each of you. I'm going to come to each of you, gentlemen. There are also players. I'm going to go across to them. But we first want to listen into what the citizens of this country think, because I think this is a story that has completely shocked the average citizen of India. This is something that the viewers are calling in and expressing their views. Let's listen in. And Vaibhav Agarwal, please listen in very closely to what our viewers have to say. We have Ravi calling in from Hyderabad. Ramesh, I beg your pardon. Mr. Ramesh, please go ahead.
Hello. Good evening. See, with this incident, our chances of holding a Olympic will be spoiled. And moreover, with what face you decide you're going to bid for Olympics? If this is what the people think, and this is what happens, I don't think we chance even to hold it. We have any chance of holding even a next Commonwealth Games also. That's what we're talking about. I think. Thank you
for your time and your views, Mr. Ramesh. Sanjeev is our next viewer joining us. Yes, Sanjeev.
Yes, sorry, but मैं English में नहीं बोलूँगा. I will speak in Hindi.
Please go ahead, sir. बोलिए.
देश के लोगों को ये आईना दिखा रहे हैं. जो भी हमारे पैनलिस्ट बैठे हुए हैं, इनको शर्म से डूब मरना चाहिए. हमारे वुमेन्स के साथ ऐसा हरासमेंट हो रहा है. Nobody is liable. ये बीजेपी के लोग, जो कांग्रेस के लीडर्स हो, कोई भी बैठा हो, सब लोग they are involved in all these kinds of rubbish.
Absolutely. And in fact, the biggest takeaway, Mr. Sanjeev, and this is what our viewers are telling us time and again, that ultimately our netas are the ones who've been ruling over sporting bodies for the past several decades. They all have to take responsibility. It's not about any one political party. Ultimately, there is collective responsibility of the political class. BK Ojha is our next viewer calling us. Yes, BK Ojha.
Sir, can I speak in Hindi?
जी बोलिए.
सर मुझे ये कहना है कि आप लोग सर पहले से ही मीडिया ट्रायल क्यों चालू कर देते हो? उनको उनका पक्ष रखने दीजिए ना, जो भी होएगा आएगा बाहर.
जी
पहले से आप
उनकी आवाज, सर जो विक्टिम है उसकी आवाज उठानी पड़ती है कई बार मीडिया को, नहीं तो जस्टिस इस देश में नहीं मिलता, और ये कई बार हमने देखा है. हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए धन्यवाद ओझा जी. वी हैव मिस्टर श्रीनिवासन जॉइनिंग अस नाउ फ्रॉम हैदराबाद. यस मिस्टर श्रीनिवासन.
Yeah, good evening, dear. I just going on looking for this news from yesterday onward. It's a very hurt, and this problem is actually maybe it's a national problem, but most of my relatives work in railways. Most of them are in sports field. This problem is in Indian railways especially. There is a lot of harassment.
Absolutely.
Girls and boys, even boys also cry because there are a lot of influence they are putting up, and harassment is. Even the officers, railway officers also involved in this one.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thank you for your views, Mr. Srinivasan. It is harassment that happens at a mass scale, but perhaps only few of them have the courage to actually speak out, and that's why these wrestlers must be lauded. Raghu is with us now from Bengaluru. Yes, Raghu.
My name is Raghu and I am a national level badminton player. I happen to be a member of Karnataka Badminton Association. This is not only applicable to the wrestling federation at all. It is always applicable to all sports, There are people in these federations who have been in this power situation for the last 16 years in badminton. So even our sport is ruined. Similarly, I think the sport of wrestling is also ruined, the sport of cricket is ruined, the sport of boxing is ruined. Every sport is ruined because there is an enormous amount of people staying back in the position for longer years. 16 years is a long time in
Absolutely. Why should anyone be there for 16 years? In every federation, there have been allegations. Very, very serious points that is being made there by Raghu. Thank you so much for joining us, Raghu. Let me now take this across to our sports persons on our panel. We have with us Hardeep Singh, former Olympic wrestler. Hardeep Singh जी, जब इस तरह की टिप्पणी आप सुनते हैं, जो कमेंटेटर्स कहते हैं कि हम मीडिया से क्यों उछाल रहे हैं, मीडिया सेंसेशनलाइज कर रहा है जो ये लड़कियां कह रही हैं, साथ में कई लोगों का कहना है कि और रिड्रेसल मैकेनिज्म्स हैं, और अगर आप क्या कहते हैं कि आप कैसे माने कि हर तरह की जो रिडर्सल मैकेनिज्म्स है पूरी तरह फेल हो गई है? क्या कहेंगे आप इन लोगों को जो इस तरह के बयान देते हैं, इस तरह की दलील रखते हैं?
देखिए, सबसे पहले तो सभी को नमस्कार।
जी बोलिए।
और ये जो मीडिया का है ना, मीडिया का तो जो ये राजनेता है ना, इसको तो सभी बातों का पता नहीं होता। जो हमारे खिलाड़ियों के साथ बीतती है ना, खिलाड़ियों को साथ हमारे साथ जैसे व्यवहार होता है वो हमारे को भी पता होता है। जैसे लड़कियों के साथ जो व्यवहार होता है लड़कियों को पता होता है, जो लड़कों को पता होता है। तो इसलिए स्पोर्ट्समैन को ही रहने दे, ये राजनेताओं में तो मत घुसने दो। और ये जो गलत व्यवहार करते हो इसको ज्यादा से ज्यादा सख्त सजा मिलनी चाहिए।
जी क्या कहेंगे विक्रम यादव जी, क्या आप भी सहमत हैं इनसे, हरदीप सिंह से?
इससे है ना जी,
हम सब पहलवान एक साथ हैं, हम जंग के लड़ाई करेंगे, ठीक, इंसाफ मिलना चाहिए हमें।
जी, let me take this across to Rakesh Singh, who's a coach and as well as the general secretary of the Haryana Wrestling Association. Rakesh Singh जी, सारे पहलवान एक साथ हो गए हैं, वो कह रहे हैं हम एकजुट हैं, और यहाँ तक कि कई सारे पहलवान हैं जो अपनी फेथ रूलिंग पार्टी में भी रख चुके हैं, लेकिन वो भी कह रहे हैं कि वो चाहते हैं कि इंसाफ हो, कि बहुत समय से ये अन्याय चलता आ रहा है, हैरेसमेंट चलती आ रही है। राकेश सिंह जी, आपको आवाज आ रही है मेरी?
जी जी, हाँ जी, नमस्कार सर।
नमस्कार राकेश सिंह जी, सारे प्लेयर्स कह रहे हैं हम एकजुट हैं, हम लड़ेंगे इंसाफ के लिए, न्याय के लिए।
ये जो अभी नहीं, अच्छी बात है, प्लेयरों को एक साथ रहना चाहिए, और पहले भी एक रहे हैं, लेकिन जो एलिगेशंस लगे हैं, जो हमारी बेटियों ने, जो भारत की शान है, उन्होंने नेताजी पे ये लगाया है ब्लेम, तो इसकी जांच तो होनी चाहिए ना। आप बगैर जांच के और उनको दोषी ठहरा दो, ये तो अच्छी बात नहीं है। आप प्लेयर इकट्ठे हैं, हम भी प्लेयरों के साथ ही खड़े हैं, हमारी बेटियां हैं वो, हम उनके साथ हैं, और पूरा हरियाणा नहीं, पूरा देश उनके साथ खड़ा है।
क्या उन्हें इस्तीफा नहीं देना चाहिए? अगर वो रेसलिंग फेडरेशन के चीफ बने रहेंगे तो फेयर इन्वेस्टिगेशन कैसे होगी राकेश जी?
नहीं, देखिए 22 तारीख की मीटिंग रखी है, उसमें क्या फैसला होता है, और वो इस पद पर बने नहीं रहेंगे, क्योंकि अप्रैल में तो उनका इलेक्शन ही है, उनको तो 11 साल कुछ महीने हो गए हैं, और
तो आज ही इस्तीफा दे दें,
एक पद पर रह सकते हो,
तो आज ही इस्तीफा दे दें, 22 तक रुके क्यों?
नहीं लगता कि इसके ज्यादा इंटरेस्टेड हैं।
नहीं, अगर वो इंटरेस्टेड हो या ना हो वाली बात ही नहीं है ना, अगर आपको पता है कि वो जा रहे हैं तो वो ऑलरेडी
आसान है
सर, नैतिक आधार पे इस्तीफा तो दे सकते हैं ना, कोई रोक तो नहीं रहा उन्हें। अगर इतनी बड़ी कंट्रोवर्सी हो गई, आप चाहते हैं कि फेयर इन्वेस्टिगेशन हो, तो वो स्टेप असाइड कर ले।
एक परिवार है, अभी इन पहलवानों का नेताजी को उतारने का काम नहीं है, सुनिए मेरी बातें, नेताजी के लिए नहीं है ये तो कहते हैं ऑल इंडिया की फेडरेशन को खत्म किया जाए और उस पद पे हमें बिठा दिया जाए, क्योंकि हरियाणा में ड्रामा पहले हो चुका है।
एग्जैक्टली।
अच्छा,
ये राजनीतिक घुसादी है इसके अंदर। ये तो दीपेंद्र हुड्डा जी जो है इस पद पे थे हमारे 12 साल से, ये उन्होंने पहलवानों का यूज करके उनको आगे कर दिया है।
अच्छा, ये राजनीतिक षड्यंत्र है हरदीप सिंह जी, क्या आप मानते हैं, क्या सहमत है आप इनसे हरदीप सिंह जी?
ये राजनीतिक षड्यंत्र है, हमारे पहलवान इस तरह के नहीं है।
आपने सवाल पूछा, हरदीप सिंह को जवाब देने दीजिए। हरदीप सिंह जी जवाब दीजिए,
कितना नाम रोशन किया है,
जवाब दीजिए।
ये जो हरियाणा ये हरियाणा के जो अध्यक्ष बने हुए हैं, जो अभी बने हैं, इनका मैं बहुत सम्मान करता हूं। ये इनसे बोलो भाई आप एक साइड रहें, या तो पहलवानों के साथ लग लो या नेताजियों के साथ रहें। ये दोनों साइड की बातें करते हैं, अभी भी आपने देखा होगा ये दोनों साइड की बातें कर रहे हैं।
तो आप मानते हैं कि जो आरोप लगा रहे हैं कि ये राजनीति से प्रेरित है, क्या कहेंगे आप?
तो अभी
नहीं जी, बिल्कुल नहीं। दीपेंद्र जी यहाँ तो कोई मतलब ही नहीं। अभी तो जो पहलवान के साथ हुआ है, इतने बड़े बड़े पहलवान है, हमारे साथी हैं, जो महिलाएं साथी हैं, और उनने अपने बोला भाई हम सबूत के साथ पेश करेंगे।
सबूत के साथ पेश करेंगे। दैट्स अ वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट। सबूत भी सामने आएगा राकेश सिंह जी, कोर्ट केस भी होगा, ऑफिशियल कंप्लेंट भी फाइल होगी।
तो भंग किया जाए, ये कौन सा तरीका है?
नहीं तो पुलिस कंप्लेंट होगी, पुलिस इन्वेस्टिगेशन होगी।
ये आज से 10 साल 12 साल हो जाएंगे, अभी 12 साल हो जाएंगे 4 महीने में।
अगर अन्याय और अत्याचार हो रहे हैं सर, बिल्कुल बंद करना चाहिए। इनका नैतिक आधार है, वो बिल्कुल मांग सकते हैं।
इनकेस आप मिलेनियन वाली जनरेशन से हैं तो आपने शायद वो गाना सुना होगा, देखा जो तुझे यार दिल में बजी गिटार। सो कुछ ऐसे अगर आप मूड में हैं तो यहाँ पे ये गिटार की स्ट्रिंग्स टाइप दी गई हैं। एग्जैक्टली स्ट्रिंग्स नहीं है, बट ऐसे कुछ मूड में है तो आप इनका इस्तेमाल उस समय जरूर कर सकते हैं। अब आप समझ गए होंगे कि गाड़ी कौन सी है। हाल ही में इसका लॉन्च हुआ था। ये है BYD की Atto 3 और क्या परफॉर्मेंस, क्या रेंज, क्या डिजाइन, क्या फीचर्स BYD अपने इस इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल में दे रहा है, उन सभी के बारे में मैं आपसे बात करने वाला हूं इस वीडियो में। और वीडियो के अंत में हमेशा की तरह बात करेंगे 3 धांसू और 3 not so धांसू।
We apologize for the technical glitch that we had, but I want to quickly go back to our panelists. In fact, raising his hand at this point of time, and I'm going to come across to Vivek Srivastava because there's some specific questions in relation to what happened today at Jantar Mantar that I need to ask you. But since the question has been raised by Rakesh Singh about political interference, let me bring in the JJP spokesperson, Advocate.
Co-presented by RP Sanjeev Goenka Group, Growing Legacies.
Co-powered by Samsonite, tested like Samsonite.
RP Sanjeev Goenka Group, Growing Legacies over 200 years.
Why did life test me? Why did it try to crush me, shake me, break me? Why me? Because it knew if I could take this test, I could take anything and say, that was easy.
Who am I? I'm going to be buying what you're going to be making. I want to know you're making a better world.
I'll give my money to the one who never robs the earth.
I'll spend my fortune on you if you promise to think of the less fortunate too.
I want to know you're making a more equal world.
I'll invest in your technology to put a man on Mars. But wait, why can't it be a woman? I'll click on your app, I'll walk into your shop.
As long as you're fair to the farmer and his crop. I'm gonna be buying what you're gonna be making. And if you make the world a little better too, no one will feel richer than you.
The smartphone category in India is anyway popular, right? उसमें भी जो 20 से 25 हजार वाले स्मार्टफोन्स हैं वो और भी ज्यादा पॉपुलर हैं। शायद इसीलिए इन्फिनिक्स ने आज अपना 020 स्मार्टफोन लॉन्च कर दिया है। I have the smartphone with me right here और इसको आज करेंगे अनबॉक्सिंग। Hi, you're watching Gadget Time. This is me, Padmaja, and it's time for me to unbox this device और देखते हैं फोन में आपको क्या-क्या contents दिखाई देंगे। Let's wait. फोन अनबॉक्स हो चुका है। जैसे कि आपने देखा यहाँ पर स्टिकर उतारते हुए मैंने इसे थोड़ा सा गंद मचा दी। यहाँ पे स्टिकर ऑलरेडी दिखाई दे रहा है, बट इसको क्लीन करेंगे बाद में। अभी बात करेंगे स्मार्टफोन के बारे में। थोड़ा सा मुझे वेट इसका ज्यादा लग रहा है, वो यूज करने के बाद पता चलेगा कि ये कितना कंफर्टेबल है। अदर देन दैट यू गेट 3 कैमराज एट द बैक। इसको आपको मिलेगा स्क्वायरिश कैमरा मॉड्यूल के अंदर। द मेन कैमरा इज 108 मेगापिक्सल और यही इसका यूएसपी है। सिर्फ बैक कैमरास की बात नहीं है बॉस, आपको फ्रंट कैमरा भी बहुत ही धांसू दिखाई दे रहा है। एटलीस्ट ऑन द स्पेक शीट यूज करने पे पता चलेगा कि कितना अच्छा है या नहीं अच्छा है। फ्रंट कैमरा जो इसका है वो आपको मिलता है 60 मेगापिक्सल का फ्रंट शूटर। आपको इसमें दिखाई देगा फुल HD प्लस एमोलेड पैनल। बेजल्स थोड़े से मुझे मोटे दिखाई दे रहे हैं, टॉप और बॉटम वाला स्पेशली। साइड बेजल्स आर स्टिल स्लिम। व्हाट कीप्स दिस स्मार्टफोन अलाइव इज Helio G99 चिपसेट। बैटरी की बात करें तो इसमें आपको मिलता है 45 वॉट का फास्ट चार्जिंग सिस्टम, विच इज प्रिटी गुड। एट द बॉटम यू ऑल्सो गेट अ 3.5 mm हेडफोन जैक एंड दैट इज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग, क्योंकि आजकल के फोन में ये आपको बिल्कुल दिखाई नहीं देता है। सो यू डू नॉट हैव टू जस्ट रिलाई ऑन योर वायरलेस ईयरबड्स। आप यहाँ पर अपने वायर्ड हेडफोन्स का भी इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं। स्पीकर के साथ आपको मिलता है Type-C पोर्ट, ऊपर की तरफ माइक्रोफोन है, राइट साइड पे आपको मिलता है वॉल्यूम रॉकर और साथ में पावर बटन। लेफ्ट साइड इज प्रीटी क्लीन, लेकिन यहाँ पे आपको मिलता है सिम ट्रे और सिम इंजेक्टर टूल बॉक्स में आपको मिलता है, वो मैं दिखा चुकी हूँ। यहीं पर सिम ट्रे की बात करते करते मेरी नजर गई है फ्रेम पर, विच इज प्रीटी ग्लॉसी। मेटल तो नहीं है, लेकिन ऐसा फील जरूर दे रहा है दैट इट्स मेटल। बाकी ये था मेरा ओवरऑल लुक एट द स्मार्टफोन। अगर आप जानना चाहते हैं कि क्या आपको ये खरीदना चाहिए एट अराउंड ₹20,000-25,000, क्या ये अच्छा ऑप्शन है या नहीं, उसके लिए यू रियली नीड टू स्टे ट्यून्ड टू गैजेट टाइम्स टू फाइंड आउट इट्स फुल रिव्यू। नाउ यू गाइज नो द ड्रिल, लाइक, शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब एंड जस्ट स्टे ट्यून्ड टू गैजेट टाइम्स। थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग दिस वीडियो।
You clever, make you beg for more. You want and you can take me to the top. Yeah, I'd like to see you try. Like to see
When you're in Davos, you must get a ringside view of how India is being accepted at the high table of the world and what are the challenges and opportunities that we are seeing. And tonight, joining me for a chat on what's really going on here at the World Economic Forum in Davos is Mr. Rajan Mittal, Vice Chairman of Bharti Enterprises. Also joining me, Suman Sinha, the man who represents green energy and talks green energy and is the president of ASSOCHAM. I want to get a sense, Rajan Mittal. We're seeing a lot of buzz about India, bright spot, this, that and the other. Is this more in our head, or is the world really looking at India as a bright spot? And is there something which is a ray of hope for India in terms of the strides it's making in growth and catching up with the rest of the world?
You know, Navika, I've been coming here for a long period of time, and
how many years?
13 or 14, I can't remember. And every time I say I won't come, but I'm back. But let me tell you, we've seen buzz many times. It's not the first time, but this time is actually more palpable. You can see that India interest, and I've met a lot of international CEOs. I've attended sessions. I've met presidents of different countries. I can tell you, there is an opportunity. Because also the world order, that the way it has been changed between US and China, India is looking for an opportunity, and they are looking for in India both for domestic consumption and for actually moving their factories of the world, as the China is called, into India. Opportunities there. Can we seize the opportunity? That always is the question. But my belief is with the manufacturing thrust that India has given over the last couple of years with the PLI schemes and so on and so forth, and services in any case holding up, it is an opportunity. And India is a bright, in that sense, in a direction and a start. The way we see Europe and US in a recession of a sort, we are still holding up.
Sumansana, green energy is the buzzword as we hear in many conversations that are happening in Davos. How do you see the opportunity for India as far as green energy is concerned? And is it all talk, or will it translate into making India really the center where the world can take notice and it makes a difference to the Indian economy?
Sure. Well, first of all, to your previous question on whether India is just a talk or whether there's true something concrete behind here, I would say that up till now, India was always seen as a large domestic market, but there were frictions of doing business there and so on. But now I think what's happening is that all the geopolitical stars are coming into alignment. China is still a little bit uncertain as to how it's going to open up. There are issues around whether in fact there's the decoupling will happen or not. So those kinds of things are playing at the back of people's minds, and security of supply chains has become a very important factor. And that's why now, in addition to the large domestic market that India provides, there's also this question of, can India become a manufacturing destination for the rest of the world and thereby suck away a lot of the manufacturing capacities out of China and into India. And that's something that is really new. Now, as far as the sustainability issue is concerned, you would have picked up the buzz here around sustainability, right? I think that there is clearly an inflection point that has been crossed. I think every company now, for example, every large global company has a chief sustainability officer. Everybody is now thinking about their scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions, how to reduce those. And India, in that respect, is seen as really a country that has taken a lot of lead in this area. Because of the targets that have been set, the green hydrogen national policy, the PLI schemes, all of that is really coming together very nicely. So people are now realizing that, look, India is a leader in this area. Indian companies will become global leaders eventually in this area as well, and that we can actually be a really good provider of export products as well. But it will take time. We have a lot of catching up to do with China in that respect. But it will happen, and I think that sustainability is going to give India a really good another sort of additional growth opportunity as well.
Well, that's my question, Rajan, to you as well. We've been hearing this, that India can be this alternate spot from China, become the manufacturer for the world. But we missed a few opportunities. This time around COVID, when China was going through its problems, we once again have that opportunity. Are we making enough out of that opportunity? Will we actually get onto that bus this time? Do you see a slip between the cup and the lip? And on recession, you said the Western world is going through recessions. The question is, there is talk of India not being completely insulated. How are we preparing for that?
Let me take the last question first. Of course, India can't be insulated. We are an interconnected world. Economies do affect. When there is a recession, it will hit our exports. It happens. But still, as someone said, domestic market is holding up. As far as the manufacturing side is concerned, yes, we have seen many slippages. But world has also changed. The world order has changed. People are looking for trusted nations, trusted partners, trusted products, trusted sources. And India stands out in that sense to be one of those partners that can be providing all of this. We have seen in telecom, and particularly we hope that Indian stack really, shapes up over a period of time. There's just being one sector. We have to play this well, I have to say, the central, the state governments, because finally the execution happens in the states. And that challenge remains always. We have seen the central government policies are, enabling policies, but when you go to the states, and you've seen, Navika, there are 6 states representing India here in different capacities. A lot of people have been met. They have assured. So I'm only hoping that there's no, slippage between cup and the lip this time around. It's an opportunity that we should not let go.
We should not, but will we?
That's, as I said, it has to be played by the corporate world, the private sector, the government and the state governments in tandem. It cannot be done by one or the other. So we, all of us, have to, in that sense, bat on the front foot and make sure that the government and the ministers, there are 4 ministers who are representing Government of India, and then the state chief ministers or ministers, that they work in tandem along with the private sector to make sure that we do not let this slip.
Sumant, my question to you is about the fact that there is a looming energy crisis. The war between Ukraine and Russia has shown the soft underbelly of the Western world. India so far has managed well with its supplies and diversifying its basket. How big do you see in the next 12 months the energy crisis is going to be? Are we, again, the question is, are we going to be insulated, or will we have to pay the price of the war that's happening? And considering everything in India centers around the politics of the country, we are entering the election year as well. How do you see this moving forward?
Look, Navika, that's a great question. I think that energy is a very important prerequisite for every company. Every economic activity requires energy, and if the price goes up, obviously that inflationary effect feeds into everything and everybody, and certainly, as you said, in an inflation year, that becomes even more relevant. Now, if you look at globally what's happening, the war is going to carry on. We don't know when it's going to stop. I was just talking to one of my colleagues from the power sector industry in Ukraine, and he was saying we don't know when it's going to stop, right? So it's a little bit uncertain. So I think that uncertainty in the energy markets will continue to be there. What this means is that every country now is looking for securing their energy supplies, and that is causing disruptions in the market. Some commodity prices are going up. Oil is uncertain right now, but I think there'll be very sharp swings, and therefore India has to play its own position very, very carefully. I think the fact that we are taking a bit of a position where we're able to continue to buy Russian crude, I think is very important to make sure that for us at least energy prices stay down, and we have hundreds of millions of people whose economic interests we have to protect as well. So I think that's the right thing to do. Of course, coal, we'll continue to mine coal because we need the power that it generates. Of course, at the same time, we're ramping up renewables as fast as possible. So we're doing all the things that can be done to make sure that our energy supplies are secure. In addition to that, we are trying to decouple now from China, as we all know, for the essential supplies of equipment. So I think all of that will mean that India will move towards energy security and energy independence over time, but it will take time to get there. In the short run, we will have to be nimble on our feet to make sure that we continue to secure energy supplies as needed.
Well, decoupling from China, Mr. Rajan Mittal, do you think we are doing that fast enough? Because politically, again I say politically, there is criticism that India's imports from China have increased despite the standoff. It's not happening fast enough. You're from the telecom sector. That is an area where there are deep connections as far as the supply chain is concerned. Do you think we can actually decouple, and are we doing it fast enough?
It's going to take time. We are not doing fast enough is not really the issue, because what we have seen is over a period of time, their imports from China have been there for a long period of time. And it will have its own impact, but slowly and gradually. Till the time we don't move the supply chains, till the time we don't move the big boys, at least in electronics, with the billions of dollars that are being imported, there's a time lag. So we have to recognize that. Telecom has been done pretty quickly. I can tell you today, with the entire rollout of 5G, there is no Chinese equipment. 4G, probably, I believe, we are only about 20-25% of the 4G which is left with Chinese on the radio side. That also by the year end will be done with. So on telecom side, we've seen that we've really completely moved. Even handsets now are being manufactured in India. There are no more iPhones coming from China. So telecom side is done. As someone said, power and all is going to take time. And as we are going into now semiconductors and chipsets, that's it does not happen overnight. It's a 10-year
And we're talking about technology transfer, which really the big boys don't give it so easily.
And this is where I said, if there are trusted nations, trusted partners, we have to demand that. Otherwise, at the end of the day, if you don't have the entire value chain, just assembling something will not add value to our economy or proposition. So, but it's a long term. So it started. So don't expect that it will happen in 1 year or 2 years. It's a long process, but the start is good. That's all I can say.
Well, let me then also ask you a question which many CEOs are not very comfortable answering. We are in the run up to the 2024 elections. And if you read and hear what's going on, we are in election mode. You said, states is where things happen. Cooperative federalism is a term that we've heard. But with the kind of divide we've seen between political parties and across the board, do you think the election year is going to be a year where things are not going to move as far as business and growth are concerned? Is that a fear that the industry shares?
I think somewhere we have seen over a period of time, while politics has its own place, economic has to be run parallelly. Elections in India are always happening. So let me put it this way. Every year you have election in different states, and then you have a central election after 5 years. So while this will be a run-up after this budget, but I'm sure that the government of the days, either in the center or the state, will recognize that economic velocity cannot be slowed down or stopped. Some bit will happen, but it always happens. It happens across the world. So India is nothing new. Every democracy goes through that process. So we will have to say some slowdown as long as the policy continuation happens.
Suman, how do you think politics is going to impact the economy in the coming months? He says elections are there all the time, but this is the mega one.
Yeah.
This is the big one. And in the big one, preceded by 3 smaller ones, which will be also very big because of the closeness to the general elections. Do you think we will see suspended animation, or do you actually believe that everything will be hunky-dory and move at the pace that we expect it to?
Well, I'll make 2 points, Navika. First of all is that this government has been very, very prudent about their fiscal deficit. And I don't think that you'll see a lot of populist handouts. I don't think that's the style and the philosophy of this government. I think their view has always been long-term. And I think they'll continue to focus on building the economy for the long term. So I think that's as far as the government's position is concerned. At least this is my view, right? On the other side, as far as the economy is concerned, look, I think there's a lot of momentum in the economy. Corporates are not going to hold back their plans just because there is an election coming up. So I think you'll continue to see corporate capex going up. I think public sector capex will also go up. As you know, in the last budget, the FM had increased capex spend by almost 35%. This year, I expect to see a similar increase again. So I think you'll see spending carrying on, because I think this government realizes that the best way to win elections is to create economic growth and to create jobs, and to build the infrastructure and make the country more sort of efficient from a long-term.
And pressure on populism, that doesn't count?
No, I think, as I said, I think that the Prime Minister has this unique capability where he's able to actually sell, I think, the long-term work that is being done as a positive, which so far I think political parties have not been able to do as much, and therefore there was this little bit of populism. I realize that we're straying into different territory here now, and this is your area, so I am not going to go there. But I think that look, I think it's going to be fine.
It's going to be fine. Well, the temperatures here, uncomfortable, some uncomfortable questions, always in order. But business is gung-ho. India is the story at Davos, and you can make that out by the number of Indians you see at the Davos promenade. More Indians than any other nationality. But the story goes along. How much of India will change? We'll keep an ear to the ground on that one. Thank you very much, Mr. Rajan Mittal and Mr. Suman Sinha, for joining me here on the NewsHour. And we'll catch up back home in India, closer to the budget as well as closer to the elections, to see what really happens on the ground.
The News Hour at 9 will be right back after the break.
Let's get it started here, you know it's game time. Ain't no excuses tolerated why you can't grind. It's like you're on the job, you know that team.
Hello everyone, ये है बजाज की नई पल्सर P150। इन केस यू वंडरिंग 150 ऑलरेडी मौजूद है, तो इस P वर्जन को लाने का कारण क्या है, मतलब क्या है? सो कारण बहुत सारे हैं, डिज़ाइन को लेकर, फीचर्स को लेकर और कुछ हद तक परफॉर्मेंस को लेकर भी इस P वर्जन में बदलाव देखने को मिलते हैं। तो क्या है वो सारे बदलाव इस नई पल्सर P150 में, उन सभी के बारे में मैं आपसे बात करने वाला हूं इस रिव्यू के अंदर। और रिव्यू के एंड में बात करेंगे 3 धांसू और 3 नॉट धांसू एलिमेंट्स मुझे क्या लगते हैं इस बजाज पल्सर P150 के बारे में। अब डिज़ाइन की बात करें तो यहाँ पर जो नयापन देखने को मिल रहा है, स्पेशली ओवरऑल 150 जो पल्सर है उसके मुकाबले इन टर्म्स ऑफ डिज़ाइन पूरी आपको ये P150 अलग देखने को मिलेगी, लेकिन आपको ओवरऑल जो एसेंस है डिज़ाइन का वो इसमें N160 वाला देखने को मिलने वाला है। फ्रंट हालांकि अलग है यहाँ पे, लेकिन अब इसमें P150 में प्रोजेक्टर हेडलैम्प्स दिए गए हैं एंड इसमें DRLs भी यहाँ पर इसमें देखने को मिलते हैं। अग्रेसिव, स्पोर्टी एंड शार्प एलिमेंट्स इसके डिज़ाइन में यहाँ पर देखने को मिल रहे हैं एंड साइड प्रोफाइल जो ओवरऑल है वो आपको N160 वाला ही झलक थ्रू आउट इसके साइड प्रोफाइल में देखने को मिलने वाला है। टैंक से लेकर इसके रियर पैनल्स यहाँ तक जो जाते हैं तो ओवरऑल वो लुक कुछ वैसा ही है, लेकिन अग्रेसिव और शार्प काफ़ी इन टर्म्स ऑफ डिज़ाइन पहले के मुकाबले लग रही है। देन पल्सर की बड़ी सी ब्रांडिंग यहाँ दी गई है एंड यहाँ काउल अलग से देखने को मिल रहा है टैंक पे एंड देयर इज बेली पैन जो यहाँ पे नीचे दिया गया है, जो बॉडी कलर के हिसाब से दिया गया है एंड P150 की ब्रांडिंग यहाँ पर इसमें देखने को मिल रही है। सीट जो है इसमें स्प्लिट सीट्स आती हैं, इसमें 2 वेरिएंट हैं SD और TD एंड जो इसका स्टार्टिंग वेरिएंट है SD उसमें सिंगल सीट है, इसमें जो है जो टॉप वेरिएंट है इसका उसमें TD सीट दी गई है। दोनों वेरिएंट में जो अंतर हैं कुछ मैं बताता हूँ आपको कौन कौन से हैं। एक तो सीट का हो गया, दूसरा ये जो वर्जन है इसमें क्लिप ऑन हैंडल बार्स आते हैं थोड़ा स्पोर्टी स्टांस के लिए, लेकिन जो SD वर्जन है उसमें जो है सिंगल फ्रेम दिया गया है हैंडल बार का, तो वो थोड़ा अपराइट पोजिशनिंग के साथ उसका स्टांस रखा गया है। एंड उसके अलावा जो ब्रेक्स हैं, डिस्क ब्रेक्स हैं, इसमें जो है ड्यूअल डिस्क ब्रेक मिलती हैं एंड दूसरे वेरिएंट में सिंगल डिस्क ब्रेक दी गई है। सिंगल चैनल ABS दोनों ही वेरिएंट में मिलता है, उसमें कोई कटौती नहीं करी गई है एंड ये कुछ चेंजेस यहाँ पर इन टर्म्स ऑफ बोथ वेरिएंट्स इन दोनों P150 के दोनों वर्जन्स में देखने को मिलते हैं। इसके अलावा रियर में भी टेल लाइट जो है LED इस्तेमाल करी गई है, हालांकि इंडिकेटर्स आगे पीछे हेलोजन बल्ब का इस्तेमाल यहाँ पर देखने को मिल रहा है। सो स्टांस स्पोर्टी अग्रेसिव पहले के मुकाबले पल्सर 150 के मुकाबले यहाँ पर देखने में ज़रूर लग रहा है एंड यस ओवरऑल डिज़ाइन भी पहले से बेहतर ज़रूर इसका देखने में लग रहा है। इसके अलावा यहाँ पर एक USB चार्जिंग पॉइंट इसमें दिया गया है। हैंडल बार में लेफ्ट साइड में यहाँ पे हाई बीम लो बीम पास स्विच, इंडिकेटर एंड हॉर्न स्विच एंड राइट साइड में इंजन किल स्विच, इग्निशन स्विच यहाँ पर देखने को मिल रहा है। एंड इस P150 में जो एग्जॉस्ट टेल है वो अंडर बेली दिया गया है, बजाय एक्सपोज एग्जॉस्ट टेल जो होता है उसके बजाय यहाँ पर इसकी अंडर बेली में ये एग्जॉस्ट टेल देखने को मिलता है इस P150 में। एंड जो इसका डिस्प्ले है वो भी पल्सर 150 के मुकाबले अलग यहाँ देखने को मिलने वाला है। एनालॉग प्लस डिजिटल का मिक्सचर यहाँ देखने को मिल रहा है एंड स्पीडोमीटर इसका एनालॉग दिया गया है एंड डिजिटल में जो इन्फॉर्मेशन है गियर इंडिकेटर, ओडोमीटर, फ्यूल गेज, टाइम, टेम्परेचर, ये सब इन्फॉर्मेशन यहाँ पे इसके डिजिटल कंसोल में देखने को मिल रहा है। इन केस आप मिलेनियन वाली जनरेशन से हैं तो आपने शायद वो गाना सुना होगा, देखा जो तुझे यार दिल में बजी गिटार। सो कुछ ऐसे अगर आप मूड में हैं तो यहाँ पे ये गिटार की स्ट्रिंग्स टाइप दी गई हैं, एग्जैक्टली स्ट्रिंग्स नहीं है बट ऐसे कुछ मूड में है तो आप इनका इस्तेमाल उस समय जरूर कर सकते हैं। अब आप समझ गए होंगे कि गाड़ी कौन सी है, हाल ही में इसका लॉन्च हुआ था, ये है BYD की Atto 3 और क्या परफॉर्मेंस, क्या रेंज, क्या डिजाइन, क्या फीचर्स BYD अपने इस इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल में दे रहा है, उन सभी के बारे में मैं आपसे बात करने वाला हूं इस वीडियो में। और वीडियो के अंत में हमेशा की तरह बात करेंगे 3 धांसू और 3 नॉट धांसू एलिमेंट्स मुझे क्या लगे इस BYD Atto 3 के बारे में। तो चलिए शुरुआत करते हैं। तो शुरुआत कर लेते हैं इस Atto 3 के डिजाइन वाले एस्पेक्ट से। तो फ्रंट में BYD का कहना है ये गाड़ी का डिजाइन जो है ओवरऑल ड्रैगन इंस्पायर्ड है, चाइनीज ब्रांड है, तो कुछ वैसा ही एसेंस BYD कह रही है हमने इस गाड़ी के डिजाइन और स्टाइलिंग में देने की कोशिश करी है। हालांकि ड्रैगन इंस्पायर्ड तो मुझे फ्रंट ज्यादा नहीं लग रहा है, बट फिर भी यहाँ पे सेंटर में बड़ा सा BYD का लोगो है, क्रोम का एलिमेंट दिया गया है थ्रू आउट जो जाता है इसके फ्रंट हेडलाइट के ऊपर से सेंटर तक। एंड हेडलाइट जो है क्रिस्टल LED कॉम्बिनेशन लाइट्स यहाँ पर इसमें देखने को मिल रही है। एंड DRL देख रहे हैं, देखने में खूबसूरत ही काफी लग रहा है। इसका फ्रंट जो लाइट का सेक्शन है काफी स्लीक कॉम्पैक्ट इसका हेडलाइट का डिजाइन लग रहा है। एंड जो टर्न इंडिकेटर्स हैं वो भी इसके DRL में ही इंटीग्रेटेड हैं, तो यहाँ पे जब इसको टर्न इंडिकेटर ऑन होंगे तो ये DRL टर्न इंडिकेटर का काम भी करेगा। इसके अलावा इलेक्ट्रिक गाड़ी है तो फ्रंट में कुछ यहाँ पे इवेंट वगैरह देखने को नहीं मिलेगा, ऑब्वियस है। एंड इसमें जो है ADAS लेवल 2 के फीचर्स देख सकते हैं आप, यहाँ सेंसर्स वगैरह, रेडार वगैरह यहाँ पे इसमें देखने को मिल रहा है। एंड 360 डिग्री कैमरा यहाँ पर इस BYD की Atto 3 में इधर दिया गया है। साइड प्रोफाइल पे आए तो यहाँ पर जो टायर्स इसमें दिए गए हैं वो हैं 18 इंच के 215 सेक्शन के टायर्स दिए गए हैं। एंड यहाँ पे जो डिजाइन है एलॉयस का ये भी थोड़ा स्पोर्टी स्टाइलिश देखने में जरूर लग रहा है। BYD का हब यहाँ पे सेंटर में दिया गया है व्हील में। एंड ओवरऑल जो यहाँ पे डिजाइन है, यहाँ पे क्लैडिंग थ्रू आउट जाती हुई आपको पीछे तक इसमें देखने को मिलेगी। BYD डिजाइन की बैजिंग यहाँ दी गई है क्रोम में। यहाँ पे जो है इसका ये चार्जिंग सॉकेट है। एंड इसका जो चार्जिंग सॉकेट है वो आप एक्सटर्नल पावर कहीं आपको देनी है, छोटा मोटा कुछ आपको कॉफी मशीन टाइप, छोटा मोटा फ्रिज आपको यहाँ पे इससे एक्टिवेट करना है, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी देनी है वहाँ पे, तो उसका इस्तेमाल इस तरह से भी करा जा सकता है। तो ये एक ऑप्शन BYD ने इस Atto 3 में दिया है। देन साइड प्रोफाइल में क्रोम का एलिमेंट थ्रू आउट इसके विंडोज के आसपास। एंड यहाँ पर थोड़ा ये सिल्वर टच इसके रूफ रेल में इधर देखने को मिल रहा है। डोर हैंडल्स जो हैं बॉडी कलर्ड हैं। एंड ORVM जो है इसमें जो है हीटेड का भी ऑप्शन दिया गया है, तो हीटेड ORVMs है। एंड ब्लाइंड स्पॉट मॉनिटरिंग के फीचर्स ऑब्वियसली यहाँ देखने को मिलेंगे क्योंकि ADAS लेवल 2 के सेफ्टी फीचर्स इसमें दिए गए हैं। एंड नीचे डोर्स में भी थोड़ा ब्लैक और ये बॉडी कलर कॉम्बिनेशन इसके डोर्स में नीचे देखने को मिल रहा है। साइड से डिजाइन में कहूँ बहुत ज्यादा फ्यूचरिस्टिक नहीं लग रहा, बट ओवरऑल देखने में अच्छा जरूर लग रहा है। इसके अलावा रियर में आए तो रियर में यहाँ पे थोड़ा स्पॉइलर वाला फील दिया गया है इधर। एंड पियानो ब्लैक और ये बॉडी कलर ब्लू के कॉम्बिनेशन में अच्छा सेक्शन, जो इंटरेस्टिंग सेक्शन इन टर्म्स ऑफ डिजाइन मुझे लगता है वो है इसका ये टेल लाइट का डिजाइन। जो ये स्ट्रिप जा रही है इसकी टेल लाइट को जोड़ती है अब अमूमन।
Good evening and welcome. You're watching the NewsHour agenda. I'm Padmaja Joshi. Part 1 of a documentary released by the BBC on the 17th of January has created ripples back home in the UK, and the reason is simple. This documentary, titled India, the Modi Question, claims to examine the role of the then Chief Minister of Gujarat, Narendra Modi, in allowing the riots to happen. The documentary even has people who say that the riots were ethnic cleansing and targeted at Gujarat's Muslim minority. This documentary has now been called by the Indian External Affairs Ministry as propaganda and indicative of a colonial mindset. The MEA, today in the first ever official government reaction to this documentary, said that the film has no objectivity and is only trying to push a narrative.
We think this is a propaganda piece designed to push a particular discredited narrative. The bias, a lack of objectivity, and frankly a continuing colonial mindset is blatantly visible. If anything, this film or documentary is a reflection on the agency and individuals that are peddling this narrative again. It makes us wonder whether about the purpose of this exercise and the agenda behind it, and frankly we do not wish to dignify such efforts.
But the charges don't just stop at what the External Affairs Ministry said today. The Indian diaspora in the UK has also been staging protests against the documentary, calling it one filled with half-truths and aimed at creating fissures in Indian society and deliberately project a negative image of India and in particular the Prime Minister of India. In fact, Lord Rami Ranger wrote to the British Foreign Office calling the Modi question a piece of work that insults not just India as a country but even its Supreme Court. Why? Because remember, it is the Supreme Court of India that has examined these same details, these same facts, these same witnesses and these same incidents and has actually given a clean chit to Narendra Modi for the 2002 Gujarat riots. But as far as this documentary is concerned, the most damning testimony is from Swapan Das Gupta, the BJP leader who was interviewed for the documentary by the BBC, and he claims that his interview has been selectively quoted in order to pad up a hatchet job.
I'm here because, frankly, I'm sick and tired of the continuous, inaccurate, bigoted reporting that the BBC does. I want the BBC to recognise the responsibility that they have to ensure that their reporting is accurate, it's non-biased, and it doesn't divide communities, which is exactly what they're doing.
So I think this documentary is a very short-sighted, has no vision, it doesn't look at a bigger picture. This event took place 20 years ago. Indian judiciary tried, tested everything, and Mr. Modi was exonerated.
Well, it was basically more in the nature of a particular agenda. They wanted to demonstrate that Mr. Modi has got a clean chit, but this clean chit is not emphatic, and these are clouded in controversy. The judgments are spurious, etc., etc. I think that there was a ready-made conclusion, and they tried to establish that. So, as I keep on saying, this was a hatchet job, and they went out and did that.
The strange thing though is that many within India are even now actively peddling the documentary and have hailed it as a piece of great investigative journalism. But the question is, how? How has the BJP, the BBC, reached a different conclusion after investigating the same facts that the Supreme Court of India already has and has reached a very different conclusion? Are those people who are hailing the findings of this documentary then insinuating that they believe the TV channel more than India's agencies and courts? And finally, with the work being called a propaganda piece and a hit job, the question is, what is the motive or the agenda behind it?
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Huzaifa Amir Rashadi, leader of the Rashtriya Ulema Council, is joining us along with Anirban Banerjee, political analyst, Qamar Zaman Chaudhary, leader of the Congress. But my first question is to Adit Kothari, founding member of the Indian Society, because you, Adit, have also been part of the protests that were held against this documentary and the BBC in London. The question is, why? Why do you have a problem with a piece of work that in India is being called great investigative journalism? After all, everyone has the right to tell their story.
That's great. Padmaja, thank you so much for having me on this show and, allowing us to voice our opinion on this this tragic event and this absolutely rabid broadcasting that was essentially executed by the BBC. Essentially, the problem is much larger. If you notice that this particular documentary was not released in India, and that was deliberately done by design. It was done so only for the consumption of the British public, because here we have a Prime Minister that wears his religion of being a Hindu, being a proud Hindu, up on his sleeve, and proudly calls himself Hindu. The attempt was essentially to draw parallels between the UK's Prime Minister, who's a British Hindu, and India's Prime Minister, who calls himself a Hindu nationalist, draw parallels to them and draw a conclusion to say that, in India we have a Hindu fascist Prime Minister, and in the UK we have a Hindu Prime Minister. We've got to get rid of them both. And this is a deliberate attempt by the left intelligentsia based in the UK and the rabid journalists who have essentially lost every kind of objectivity while this broadcast. I mean, simple things like, the Gujarat government reached out to the neighboring states for police assistance, and the neighboring states were essentially all Congress ruled states who defied that and said that, we're scared that the riots may spill over into their particular states, and thus, we cannot give you police assistance. All of those kind of things, all of those kind of facts were completely omitted and deliberately omitted from that particular documentary. And people in India who do not recognize Narendra Modi as the Prime Minister, who do not agree with him politically, are using this to their advantage, and that is
so
where.
So basically, this documentary is an effort to try and discredit Narendra Modi, Kamar Zaman Chaudhary, despite the fact that he has been given a clean chit by the Supreme Court. How do you believe the BBC as opposed to the Supreme Court of India?
Well, Padmaja, first of all, it all depends. I'm not here to pass a judgment or be judgmental on the entire documentary that BBC has released. But, it's entire story depends on your subjective interpretation of the entire documentary, whatever it is. You can flag down a few very important points within the entire documentary, but then one thing, there cannot be a smoke without fire. There are lots of instances that people have pointed out through the Gujarat files by Rana.
What exactly is the smoke, sir? Let's be more specific. What is the smoke? What if I say tomorrow that you are a land grabber, and then Adit Kapadia will be like, well, no smoke without fire. So hence you are a land grabber.
Padmaja, if you give,
even if facts do not show that you are actually grabbing any land, but since I claim that you are a land grabber, there is no smoke without fire.
Let me come to that. There are certain instances, as you can flag some issues within the documentary, there are certain issues which we need to flag in the entire issue from 2002 till 2002 Supreme Court's acquittal. There are a lot of issues that need to be discussed if at all we want to open up the Pandora's box.
No, let's talk facts. Let's not talk rhetoric about facts, Pandora's box, etc. Tell me a specific smoke.
I hope you
because
give me
I want to get to the fire.
2 minutes of your precious time.
So here let's start with the facts, okay? Here is what in black and white the Supreme Court said about the allegation that Mr. Modi actively abetted the riots of 2002. And I quote, "It's a devious stratagem to keep the pot boiling for ulterior design, and all those involved were doing an abuse of process." This is the Supreme Court of India. How is it that the BBC, completely contrary to the Supreme Court of India, which has found it a devious stratagem, has called the riots ethnic cleansing? How, Kamar Zaman Chaudhary?
Okay, 2 minutes, Padmaja, if you permit me.
Yes.
First and foremost, let me quote the reference of the General Zamir Shah in his book, The Sarkari Musalman, wherein he says, why
are we going around in circles
if you permit me,
when I am going straight to the point of the Supreme Court?
Please have the patience and the courage to listen to the facts.
I respect General Shah immensely, but he has not got access to witnesses, testimonies, phone records, government records, policemen who are testifying, victims who have testified, eyewitnesses who have testified. This is his version. Including all of this was examined by the Supreme Court of India. Sir, you are giving me anecdotal evidence. I am telling you a verdict that has been given after examining all of this evidence. Now let's talk about specifics. In its documentary, the BBC says that what happened in 2002 in India is ethnic cleansing. How is this possible, sir, when in the riots of 2002 in Gujarat, 790 Muslims unfortunately perished, but 254 Hindus died in the post-Godhra violence, plus 59 were burnt alive in the train at Godhra. How can it be ethnic cleansing, according to the diplomatic cable that has been quoted by the BBC, when Hindus also died and Muslims also died?
Padmaja, have you finished?
Yes.
I hope it is not a monologue.
Go
if
on.
you have called me, it has to be both sides of the debate
How
where
is
you
it
can
ethnic
counter
cleansing?
me. Yeah, let me come to the point. Well, as I was telling you, let me just quote one small paragraph of General Zamir Shah's book. I feel the Godhra, with reference to the Godhra train incident, I feel the charred, blood-ridden bodies from the burnt bogies were aimed at provoking the riots. I asked the administration to immediately remove them. As they were igniting passion, they remained in view of the killing public and worsened the situation. Now here the administration has been directly responsible, made by General Zamir Shah.
Okay.
Then second point.
You have quoted General Zamir Shah. Here's what the Supreme Court of India says about the same Godhra incident and the violence that followed. This is also indicative of the fact that proactive measures were taken by the state, but it was overrun by the expanse of spontaneous mass violence. The SIT has noted that the SIB, being responsible to collect intelligence regarding law and order situation in the state, was at the relevant time gathering the intelligence. The authorities were supervising the functions of this department, have been named as part of a pre-planned larger conspiracy. It has been understood the allegation of pre-planned larger conspiracy and involvement of named high officials is unsubstantiated. Now, the Supreme Court of India has found that the police were given a free hand, there was no pre-planned conspiracy, and there was no involvement of higher authorities. This is as per agencies and the Supreme Court. Now,
I told you, ma'am, in the first place, it is all depending on your subjective interpretation of the entire issue. When you are reading the Supreme Court's judgment, the Justice Khanwilkar's report, the judgment that is, do you just go into the tone and the tenure of the language of the judgment order?
I go by facts. So let's come to the facts,
Padmaja,
which cannot be subjective. Let's come to the subjective facts.
Neither Padmaja nor any of the panelists nor Kamru has visited the Gujarat at that time in 2002, nor have we witnessed Narodaya Patia, nor have we witnessed
and the SIT, whose evidence was submitted in the Supreme Court, has.
No, Bilkis Banu is an issue
Members
that
of
we
the
all
Supreme
know
Court,
because of
SIT
the present day what happened.
It is all subjective. Okay, let's take this one by one.
Of Ehsan Jafri, the sum total, Padmaja, is that incidents of Gujarat 2002 will always haunt us, no matter what.
But sir,
nobody killed the 2,000 people out there. Nobody
of course they will haunt us.
Incidents of
Gujarat from Godhra to the post-Godhra violence will and should haunt everyone in this country, but you still haven't answered my question. Sir, this is not about Gujarat, this is not about Godhra, this is about the documentary, and the documentary which has very clearly indicated and insinuated that Mr. Modi was responsible for the 2002 riots. Let's be very clear about that.
No, Padmaja, the point here is that if a particular report is rattling so many people in the ecosystem, that there must be something in there. There must have been.
It is rattling no ecosystem, it is rattling right-minded people who are looking at facts.
British highest official.
Manu Khajuria, just the fact that you are rattled by this investigative report is enough evidence that there is some truth to it.
Well, Padmaja, the fact is that there is nobody who's rattled by this report. I don't know what secret report they keep referring to. And as far as the BBC documentary goes, let us take a step back and see what the image of BBC is within UK itself. First of all, it's been called an ancient regime. It's been called a taxpayer-funded privileged autocrat. It is fast losing popularity and credibility within not just the British Indian or the British Hindu diaspora in UK, but by the white British themselves, the white British people themselves. The BBC Radio 4 program called The Today has lost 500,000 listeners in just 1 year. So Brits are turning off in record numbers from BBC, and why? Because their reporting, their documentaries, they're not partial, They do not believe in neutrality. How they are colonial, and just give me time to finish this, how they are colonial, we've got ample evidences. BBC had very recently aired graphics which called Rishi Sunak names. I can't even repeat on national television. A former BBC journalist, in fact, described Liz Truss, the former Prime Minister, had a very diverse cabinet. He called it a coconut cabinet, which is a very extremely racist remark. For a long time, BBC has been following a very vile, divisive ideology, mocking ethnic cultures, Hindu festivals, criticizing black and brown people who don't fall in line with the idea of them. BBC was very recently slammed by, and I repeat, not by the necessarily only the British Indian diaspora, but by the white Britishers themselves about the podcast on Shamima Begum. And the Britishers actually protested and said that taxpayers' money was being used to, fund a PR exercise, what seemed like a PR exercise for this former ISIS bride. BBC has also been accused of anti-Semitism, not just anti-India and anti-Hindu sentiments. They broadcast folk songs which glorified attacks on Jews. Very recently, they gave platform to one of the main fake news peddler of the Leicester violence, Majid Freeman. Allegations against BBC have gone up to a level that right now a regulatory body, Ofcom, is actually investigating it because it is believed they do not serve the lower income groups. They do not represent everybody in the UK. And in fact, a major campaign against the BBC, which is not run by Indians or Hindus or any international agency, but by the white British people themselves, the director being Rebecca Ryan. She is running this campaign, defund the BBC. They have alleged and they have called BBC anti-British. So it's only natural that BBC does a documentary which, they've been formally accused of so much bias, so much anti-Hindu, anti-India activity. So this kind of a documentary being, aired 10 years later is not a surprise.
But why would they do it? Are you seriously saying that the BBC wants to unseat or discredit or slander or taint Mr. Modi? Why would they do that? They're sitting in London. Why would they care?
Well, exactly. The idea, the thought behind this clearly is questionable. And it's very well known that BBC has a colonial mindset. It still thinks it can control, foreign regimes. It can change governments. It clearly has a very disdainful attitudes towards the largest democracy that is India, towards the sitting Prime Minister. And their own Prime Minister has clearly said that he does not believe in this characterization.
Exactly.
The UK government has a clear stand. And the MP who brought it up is, of course, please, it's to be noted that he's a Pakistani origin British MP. The kind of ecosystem the previous speaker was referring to is very obvious to everyone.
So,
obvious not just to the
serious
British
charge there, Anirban Banerjee, essentially, that the documentary is just one part. This then is going to be taken up as a propaganda piece and a propaganda tool in order to slander Narendra Modi.
Okay, so sometimes it is the Time magazine, sometimes it's the New York Times, sometimes it's the Wire, and now it's the BBC. So the list goes on and on. Whenever there's some kind of objective reporting, of course, they suddenly become anti-Hindu, anti-India, anti-national, etc., etc. And this time it is no exception. So my limited 2 points are these, that Narendra Modi, when he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat, was barred from entering the United States of America for almost a decade. But when he became the Prime Minister of our country, and I urged the government of India even today to ask.
That same United States wants to do business with the same Narendra Modi. Can we please live in the present? That 2013 is gone.
So can we expect our government to demand an apology from the US? If the US is so dependent on us for their business,
can we
then
talk
can
about
our
the present
government
issue?
ask or
Now,
demand for an apology
I want to actually,
for
please,
something
sir, I
that
do not,
we did?
this is not one of those rambling, rhetorical, then we'll yell at each other for 5 minutes and then we'll say good night. So let's be more specific about this one word you used.
This is fact.
You said,
you
want to talk fact? Now listen to fact. You said that this is a great bit of objective reporting, so it has rattled many cages. Now here's something, because I actually sat through those 60 minutes. So here's something that I noticed. The documentary actually uses a clip of their reporter from 2002, and it says that 59 pilgrims, Hindu pilgrims, were burnt in this Godhra, in this train at Godhra. However, many people have cast a doubt about who is responsible, even though some people blame Muslims. This is what the documentary says. Some people blame Muslims, but many have cast a doubt. I don't know who those many are, but here is what the trial court and the High Court of India has said about those people. Now, even as we speak, 11 people stand sentenced to death for burning Hindu pilgrims alive in Godhra. Their names are Bilal Ismail Abdul Majid, Abdul Razak Muhammad Kurkur, Ramjani Binyamin Behra, Hassan Ahmad, Jabir Binyamin Behra, Mehboob Khalid, Salim Siraj, Irfan, Mehboob Ahmad, Yusuf Hassan. Additionally, you have got another 20 people who have been sentenced to life. And by the way, their sentence was upheld by the High Court of Gujarat, which then went on to observe 5 accused people hatched a conspiracy, went to Kalabhai petrol pump to buy petrol, and Razak Kurkur went to M80 moped to a petrol pump. Then they started pelting stones and by use of weapons started breaking window glasses. Abdul reached coast S6 and Abdul Razak Muhammad Kurkur placed the mouth of the carboys in the broken window on the side of the toilet. So who are these people who in your objective piece of reporting doubt about who burnt the Hindu pilgrims alive? Anirban Banerjee.
Yeah. So this ghastly incident of the train burning happened under the watch of who? And the riots that took place where hundreds or maybe even thousands lost their lives took place under the watch of who? And this answer is known to everyone on the planet who keep at least some knowledge about our country.
Will you answer my question?
And that is the reason why the US had barred the entry of Mr. Modi.
You said that this is a piece of objective journalism. I am asking you, how can it be objective when it subjectively disregards the fact that there are 23 people who are currently serving sentences for the murder of Hindu pilgrims in Godhra, but the self-same documentary says, we don't know who killed them. How is it objective?
The documentary, if according to you or the ecosystem of the RSS BJP is not objective, why don't they file a lawsuit against the BBC? Why is there no legal procedure till now? We are seeing statements after statements from the government, from the BJP members, from the ecosystem members, but why no legal step till now? Had this been, say, for example, the Caravan or the Wire, or for that matter, any other organization that reports against the BJP?
You have dubbed it objective and real journalism, but I get the sense you haven't even watched a minute of it. Anyhow, Adit Kothari wants to respond. Yes, Adit.
No, I haven't. Of course, I haven't watched a documentary. I said the BBC is known for objective
reporting. But you find it objective journalism without watching it. That's good. You know, you should actually watch good journalism.
No, I said the BBC is known for objective reporting.
Objective? How do you know it's objective if you haven't watched it?
I said BBC is known for objective reporting.
Known for objective reporting. All right. Have you watched anything on the
BBC? BBC is known for objective reporting.
Since you just call this documentary objective without reporting it, I fear you may not watch them at all.
It's not just about my certificate, Padmaja. You can go out in the world, you can walk out of your studio room and ask any person, have you heard about BBC?
No, I have
You can ask any person, have you heard about BBC?
Anyhow.
BBC is world renowned for what? For propaganda?
See,
no.
I don't even want to get into it. This is not about the BBC. This is about one documentary and about facts actually. So let's stick to that. Anyway, I'm sure they'll be like, you know, very, very happy to get your certificate of appreciation. Adit Kothari.
Dada, thank you so much for bringing a smile to my face, because everything that you have said, is completely ludicrous and laughable. So, BB, if you haven't heard a word of what Manu was saying before you,
if somebody lacks the brains, if somebody lacks the brains of an adult, he will find it ludicrous. No problem.
You know, my vocabulary is slightly better than yours, so if I start throwing diatribes, you will be crying foul here. So let me come to the point. The first point that you raised about.
Okay, sir. Again, let's please have an adult debate over here. This is not a child's playground. Go on. Adit Kothari.
The first point that the gentleman raised about the US not apologizing, the gentleman doesn't even know that Barack Obama didn't even know till April 2014 that Narendra Modi's visa had been cancelled. Narendra Modi decided not to apply for a US visa post his cancellation in 2005. So those are facts that he's completely ignored and completely omitted from the little research that the gentleman has done. But most importantly, a lot of the people, and especially from the opposition camp, who are using this particular documentary to raise the fangs against Narendra Modi, are doing so completely on the basis of their biases against Narendra Modi, but at the same time diminishing the Supreme Court's judgment and the SIT judgment. Narendra Modi was called in for a 6 to 8 hour grilling session. He was put under narco test. These are facts that you're completely omitting and has been omitted from the documentary itself. Like Mr. Shopan Dasgupta just said in his interview, a number of things that he spoke about to the BBC have completely been omitted from that particular documentary. So the BBC always wanted to paint this narrative. They were just using the different people to get to that particular objective ultimately, and that is what they have done.
So essentially, Huzaifa Amir Rashadi, this is more a case of confirmation bias. There are people in this world who have decided that Narendra Modi is guilty. The Supreme Court can say it, the United Nations can say it, God can himself appear and say it, but they will not believe them. They will believe the one person who will say he is indeed guilty. Confirmation bias, irrespective of facts.
देखिए पद्मजा, दंगे हुए थे, ये सबको पता है, और आज 20 साल हो गए. आखिर क्या वजह है कि वो आज भी मोदी जी का पीछा नहीं छोड़ रहे हैं? अगर मैं आपको तत्कालीन प्राइम मिनिस्टर का स्टेटमेंट कोट करूं
जो कि इसी उम्मीद में जिंदा है, उनकी राजनीति इस पे चल रही है कि मोदी जी का पीछा ना छूटे, इसलिए नहीं छूट रहा है क्योंकि कुछ लोगों की राजनीति चली इस चीज पे रही है.
नहीं, ये क्या पहली राइट्स थी इंडिया में? ये क्या वाज दिस द ओनली राइट्स?
नहीं, बिल्कुल सही कहा आप लोगों ने. कुछ लोग उसी वजह से राजनीति में सक्सेस भी हो गए, और मैं आपको कोट करूं उस टाइम के जो सिटिंग प्राइम मिनिस्टर थे वाजपेयी ने कहा था कि गुजरात सरकार को राजधर्म का पालन करना चाहिए. इस स्टेटमेंट की डीपनेस को आप देखिए. नहीं, मैं वही कह रहा हूं कि अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी उस टाइम सिटिंग प्राइम मिनिस्टर थे, उनका एक कोट था कि सरकार को राजधर्म का पालन करना चाहिए. आप सोचिए कि उस कोट में कितनी गहराई थी, कितनी डीप बात उन्होंने कही थी.
और उसके कोट के बाद सर, अगेन यू नो वी हैव डिबेटेड दिस ad nauseum. By the way, that entire quote for anyone who cares should actually go on YouTube and listen. Then Mr. Modi says हाँ मैंने किया है, and then Atal Bihari Vajpayee also said हाँ वो तो है. But anyway, can we talk sir about the facts? रशादी साहब, फैक्ट्स की बात कीजिए.
अगर आप ही को बोलना है तो फिर बुलाया मत कीजिए मुझे. नहीं, मैं 20 मिनट से बैठ के सुन रहा हूं आपको. जब मेरी बोलने की बारी आई तो बार बार आप बीच में इंटरप्ट कर रही हैं मुझे.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट को बिलीव करते हैं?
अगर आपको खुद ही बोलना है, मोनोलॉग चलाना है,
या फिर आप हर चीज को कोट करेंगे, हर चीज को बिलीव करेंगे एक्सेप्ट द एक्चुअल कोर्ट जजमेंट?
नहीं, ये क्वेश्चन आवर सेशन नहीं हो रहा है. नहीं, क्वेश्चन आवर सेशन नहीं हो रहा है. मैं 25 मिनट से बैठ के सुन रहा हूं आपको तमाम.
चलिए बोलिए.
तो मेरा मौका है तो मुझे पहले बोल लेने दीजिए, फिर आप क्वेश्चन करिएगा मुझसे.
बोलिए.
मैंने कंप्लीट नहीं किया, आपने इंटरप्ट करना शुरू कर दिया मुझे. अगर वन साइडेड स्टोरी चलानी है तो फिर खत्म कीजिए.
बोलिए सर, वन साइडेड नहीं, फैक्चुअल चलानी है.
मैं उसी पे कह रहा हूं कि आज 20 साल हो गए, आज भी गुजरात दंगों ने नरेंद्र मोदी जी का पीछा नहीं छोड़ा. उस टाइम के सिटिंग प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने बोला कि गुजरात सरकार को राजधर्म का पालन करना चाहिए. राइट विंग के कई नेताओं के स्टिंग ऑपरेशन सामने आए, विश्व हिंदू परिषद के नेता सामने आए, जिन लोगों ने एक्सेप्ट किया कि किसके इशारे पे किस वजह से हम लोगों ने किया था. कई इंटरनेशनल पर्सनैलिटीज ने उस टाइम बोला कि किन लोगों ने पुलिस को रोक रखा था, कि छूट दे रखी थी दंगे होने दो. तो बीबीसी ने क्या बोला क्या नहीं बोला मुझे उस पर नहीं जाना है. मैं बात कर रहा हूं कि उस टाइम सिटिंग चीफ मिनिस्टर थे हमारे मोदी जी, जो उनका कर्तव्य बनता था कि वो जनता के सामने आते, माफी मांगते अगर कुछ गलती उनसे हुई थी। आप बिल्किस बानो का केस देखिए,
पर सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने माना है कि उनकी गलती नहीं थी।
20 साल से
जिन लोगों की, बाय द वे सर, अगेन टॉकिंग अबाउट फैक्ट्स, ऑलराइट, सो लेट मी जस्ट एक्चुअली, बिकॉज आई थिंक दिस इज गोइंग डाउन अ रोड वेयर वी हैव ट्रैवर्स्ड 100,000 times. Let me actually, as opposed to a lot of people on this panel who haven't watched the documentary but are opining on it, let me actually point out to you about 5 to 10 things that I noticed. Here are a couple of observations. The documentary, about 5 minutes in, has a shot of a man who is standing in front of a burning shop and he is clutching his forehead. The reporter says, and this is from the BBC reporter in 2002, her voiceover says, I walked in and I saw a man who was completely distraught. It was a Hindu shopkeeper whose travel agency had been set on fire. Cut to the documentary which says, largely it was Muslim areas that were being attacked. I still don't know how they reached that conclusion. The documentary then says, Ehsan Jafri called Narendra Modi for help, but he was abused and Mr. Modi hung up on him. Eventually he was killed. Do you know that the Supreme Court appointed SIT said, and this SIT, mind you, was when the UPA was in government, the Supreme Court appointed SIT said that there is no record of Ehsan Jafri having ever called Mr. Modi. Second thing, you had BJP leader Haren Pandya being quoted in this documentary as somebody who admitted that he was in a meeting with Mr. Modi where Mr. Modi said that let the rioters run free. Give them a free hand. Let the massacre happen. Again, the Supreme Court appointed SIT during the UPA regime found that Haren Pandya's phone record showed he was not even in the area where the meeting took place. He wasn't even there, leave alone in the room, he wasn't even in the area. And that again brings me to the point that by all means people have the right to investigate, but how can you, Qamar Zaman Chaudhary, call something so blatantly, factually inaccurate investigation?
But the first and foremost thing, let me just clarify out here, it is not a Hindu who lost a life or a Muslim who lost a life. It was a laboratory that was started in Gujarat in 2002 and successfully gone through all these years.
By
that
who?
Is a plain fact and simple.
Laboratory by who, sir?
Very blatant. Let me
by
be very
who?
blatant. The Hindutva laboratory
by
opened
who?
its door in Gujarat. That was a fact. Otherwise, till date, who
was it a laboratory
Haren
that was
Pandya,
started by those
who killed Haren Pandya?
who set
Nobody
the
knows.
train on fire?
How did Ehsan Jafri die? Nobody knows. What happened to the Bilkis Bano rapist? We all know. So don't please give me those excuses.
Sir, we all know because there are people who are in jail for the Gujarat riots. There are people who have been convicted for the Gujarat riots, people who are Muslims and people who are Hindus, because people from both sides died. But the point is that this documentary doesn't call it an unfortunate, terrible riot. It calls it ethnic cleansing. And that is why it's being questioned. How is it ethnic cleansing?
It was an ethnic cleansing.
How is it ethnic cleansing? When people of both religions die, how is it ethnic cleansing?
Narendra Modi appointed, being as the Chief Minister of Gujarat, he appointed the Nanavati Mehta Commission in 2002 to investigate whom? To investigate him, to investigate Amit Shah's role, to investigate the other ministers in the cabinet.
How is it ethnic cleansing? How is it ethnic cleansing, sir? Now I'll tell you the context of this ethnic cleansing and bring in Manu Khajuria on this. Ethnic cleansing has been brought in because of a government cable that was sent in 2002 to the British Foreign Office, based on which they prepared a secret report, and that report for the first time has been revealed in this documentary, and that, Manu Khajuria, is independent. So today if you are attributing motives to BBC, are you also saying that that diplomatic cable or that report was also malafide? After all, that's all the documentary does, quote that cable.
Not only that, Padmaja, let me add, Jack Straw, a very high functionary of the British government at that time, he also accepted the facts about this BBC report. He says whatever is there in the BBC report are more or less factually correct. To date, even most of the people who were affected in the Gujarat riots, still feel that those events that were shown, maybe they have skipped 1 or 2 episodes, but most of the episodes shown were actually happened on the ground. Can anybody deny that? It was a simple program initiated by the BJP in Gujarat with the help of
answer that, Manu Khajuria. It's not just about what the BBC says today, but that cable and the report from 2002 and what Jack Straw's testimony is. Manu Khajuria.
Padmaja, I think it is very clear, and we can look at what UK government stand on this particular issue is. I am going back to it again and again because we are discussing what has been said, but we are not really discussing that who is it coming from. I, like you, I was watching the documentary, and in fact, I found it such a badly made documentary in the sense that BBC has not even pretended to be, impartial. It's given one side of the story. It has said things that you've already referred to, which are almost hilarious. There have been allegations which BBC has been peddling, the fake news that BBC has been peddling for a long time. Let me just finish, please. And I am somebody who does not have a colonial hangover, so I can tell you that though Mr. Banerjee said that everybody knows what BBC is about, I would again like to point out that by December 2022, there are almost 100,000 complaints against the BBC in UK alleging very partial reporting. So we have to understand who is saying what. What has been widely discussed in India, it should be debated, it should be discussed. Supreme Court has made a ruling, but please, the discussion here is about the BBC documentary, which has, by its own admission, it was forced to admit that it has biases. It has a left liberal bias. They have admitted, and its chief, Tim Davis, Richard Sharp, they have admitted that the broadcast has an obvious bias, and they have been not impartial in its coverage of, be it documentaries which are, according to leading academicians in UK, warping the British history, contorting it to fit agendas. We know that BBC has an agenda, and that's the discussion here today. We are not discussing something which has been settled. We are discussing BBC agenda.
10 seconds, Padmaja.
No, so if this is all so very wrong, whatever the BBC has done via this documentary, where is the legal action from the government of India or any leader of the BJP? Where is the
everyone should be allowed to put out what they want to, but everyone should also know what the real facts are. Let the people watch it.
Against other newspapers or media houses.
Sir, why should we take action?
Why
See, here's the thing.
So many legal actions against
the
other
whole
media
idea
houses
is
in India?
that this is not about going after any one outlet. It is only about making it crystal clear that this is the documentary. This is being projected for political reasons by political people. But the viewing public has the full right to know the intent behind the documentary and the underlying facts as well. Go and watch it actually, and then read the Supreme Court judgment and make up your mind for yourself. Thanks very much, all gentlemen, Manu Khajuria, for joining me. There's news just coming in. Sports Minister Anurag Thakur, in fact, has invited all the protesting wrestlers for dinner. He has changed his plans and returned from Hamirpur in Himachal Pradesh today to meet all the wrestlers, and that meeting currently is taking place. Remember, a deadline has been given to the Wrestling Federation of India to give details of what action is being taken on the complaints of the wrestlers. Yes, what are the details that you're getting, Mayank? Over to you.
Well, see, absolutely, as you have rightly pointed out, that Union Sports Minister Anurag Thakur cancelled his plan in Hamirpur and, made it a point that to come back and meet the wrestlers who have been, protesting at the Jantar Mantar. So all the wrestlers have entered, the residence of Anurag Thakur, the Union Sports Minister. And what we are also learning that, the minister will hear all the grievances, because earlier, in the afternoon, there was a meeting of the high officials of the Sports Authority of India and all these wrestlers, but there was no consensus reached because their point was was that their points was not heard properly and that they want a proper resolution. And then the word came from the ministry that the minister himself will hear all the grievances from the athletes and all the wrestlers. So that's why in numbers they have arrived here at the residence of Anurag Thakur. Here a police barricading is there. You can completely see that at around 10 Anurag Thakur also himself returned from Chandigarh, and then wrestlers came one by one and they are having a meeting over dinner where a proper resolution has to be passed, as we are learning from the sources in the sports ministry. So it remains to be seen that what will happen, because they are defiant, wrestlers are defiant on mainly two demands: that Brisbane Sharan Singh should be completely removed from the post, and also there should be a fair probe in this case, and the Wrestling Federation of India should be completely disbanded.
To them by the sports minister. We'll keep a close watch. Mayank, meanwhile, thanks very much for joining us. Thanks for watching.
The News Hour at 10 will be right back after the break.
The smartphone category in India is anyway popular, right? उसमें भी जो 20 से 25 हजार वाले स्मार्टफोन्स हैं वो और भी ज्यादा पॉपुलर हैं। शायद इसीलिए इन्फिनिक्स ने आज अपना 020 स्मार्टफोन लॉन्च कर दिया है। I have the smartphone with me right here और इसको आज करेंगे अनबॉक्स। Hi, you're watching Gadget Time. This is me, Padmaja, and it's time for me to unbox this device और देखते हैं फोन में आपको क्या-क्या contents दिखाई देंगे। Let's begin. फोन अनबॉक्स हो चुका है। जैसे कि आपने देखा यहाँ पर स्टिकर उतारते हुए मैंने ऐसे थोड़ा सा गंद मचा दी। यहाँ पे स्टिकर ऑलरेडी दिखाई दे रहा है, बट इसको क्लीन करेंगे बाद में। अभी बात करेंगे स्मार्टफोन के बारे में। थोड़ा सा मुझे वेट इसका ज्यादा लग रहा है, वो यूज करने के बाद पता चलेगा कि ये कितना कंफर्टेबल है। अदर देन दैट यू गेट 3 कैमराज एट द बैक। इसको आपको मिलेगा स्क्वायरिश कैमरा मॉड्यूल के अंदर। द मेन कैमरा इज 108 मेगापिक्सल और यही इसका यूएसपी है। सिर्फ बैक कैमरास की बात नहीं है बॉस, आपको फ्रंट कैमरा भी बहुत ही धांसू दिखाई दे रहा है। एटलीस्ट ऑन द स्पेक शीट यूज करने पे पता चलेगा कि कितना अच्छा है या नहीं अच्छा है। फ्रंट कैमरा जो इसका है वो आपको मिलता है 60 मेगापिक्सल का फ्रंट शूटर। आपको इसमें दिखाई देगा फुल HD प्लस एमोलेड पैनल। बेजल्स थोड़े से मुझे मोटे दिखाई दे रहे हैं, टॉप और बॉटम वाला स्पेशली। साइड बेजल्स आर स्टिल स्लिम। व्हाट कीप्स दिस स्मार्टफोन अलाइव इज Helio G99 चिपसेट। बैटरी की बात करें तो इसमें आपको मिलता है 45 वॉट का फास्ट चार्जिंग सिस्टम, विच इज प्रिटी गुड। एट द बॉटम यू ऑल्सो गेट अ 3.5 mm हेडफोन जैक, एंड दैट इज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग क्योंकि आजकल के फोन में ये आपको बिल्कुल दिखाई नहीं देता है। सो यू डू नॉट हैव टू जस्ट रिलाई ऑन योर वायरलेस ईयरबड्स। आप यहाँ
In a massive shocker, DCW chief Swati Maliwal was allegedly molested and dragged by a car for about 10 to 15 meters after her hand got stuck in the car's window. She was out on an inspection after the Kanjawala hit and drag case. Credit war breaks out over Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Maharashtra. Uddhav Sena claims projects inaugurated by the Prime Minister had been initiated during the MBA era. Amidst the hijab hangama, Samajwadi Party MLA Zamirullah stirs a row. In a controversial comment, says that those opposing hijab should be paraded naked. Shocking details in the target killing plot emerge. Accused Naushad reportedly tried to enter Pakistan via Nepal and was helped by corrupt Nepalese officials. Jacqueline Fernandez tells a Delhi court that Sukesh Chandrasekhar, the conman accused in 200 crore rupee extortion case, played with her emotions and made her life hell.
The News Hour at 10 will be right back after the break.
time. Ain't no excuses tolerated why you can't grind. It's like on the job, you know that team.
हेलो एवरीवन, ये है बजाज की नई पल्सर P150। इन केस यू वंडरिंग, 150 ऑलरेडी मौजूद है, तो इस P वर्जन को लाने का कारण क्या है, मतलब क्या है? सो कारण बहुत सारे हैं, डिज़ाइन को लेकर, फीचर्स को लेकर और कुछ हद तक परफॉर्मेंस को लेकर भी इस P वर्जन में बदलाव देखने को मिलते हैं। तो क्या है वो सारे बदलाव इस नई पल्सर P150 में, उन सभी के बारे में मैं आपसे बात करने वाला हूं इस रिव्यू के अंदर। और रिव्यू के एंड में बात करेंगे 3 धांसू और 3 नॉट धांसू एलिमेंट्स मुझे क्या लगते हैं इस बजाज पल्सर P150 के बारे में। अब डिज़ाइन की बात करें तो यहाँ पर जो नयापन देखने को मिल रहा है, स्पेशली ओवरऑल 150 जो पल्सर है उसके मुकाबले इन टर्म्स ऑफ डिज़ाइन पूरी आपको ये P150 तक देखने को मिलेगी, लेकिन आपको ओवरऑल जो एसेंस है डिज़ाइन का वो इसमें N160 वाला देखने को मिलने वाला है। फ्रंट हालांकि अलग है यहाँ पे, लेकिन अब इसमें P150 में प्रोजेक्टर हेडलैम्प्स दिए गए हैं एंड इसमें DRLs भी यहाँ पर इसमें देखने को मिलते हैं। अग्रेसिव, स्पोर्टी एंड शार्प एलिमेंट्स इसके डिज़ाइन में यहाँ पर देखने को मिल रहे हैं एंड साइड प्रोफाइल जो ओवरऑल है वो आपको N160 वाला ही झलक थ्रू आउट इसके साइड प्रोफाइल में देखने को मिलने वाला है। टैंक से लेकर इसके रियर पैनल्स यहाँ तक जो जाते हैं तो ओवरऑल वो लुक कुछ वैसा ही है, लेकिन अग्रेसिव और शार्प काफ़ी इन टर्म्स ऑफ डिज़ाइन पहले के मुकाबले लग रही है। देन पल्सर की बड़ी सी ब्रांडिंग यहाँ दी गई है एंड यहाँ काउल अलग से देखने को मिल रहा है टैंक पे एंड देयर इज बेली पैन जो यहाँ पे नीचे दिया गया है, जो बॉडी कलर के हिसाब से दिया गया है एंड P150 की ब्रांडिंग यहाँ पर इसमें देखने को मिल रही है।
Watching the NewsHour at 10.
An FIR has been filed against Telangana BJP chief's son, Bandi Sanjay Bhagirath, at Dundigal police station in case of attack on fellow college mate. Delhi High Court has dismissed Aam Aadmi Party MLA Amanatullah Khan's plea challenging opening of history sheet against him by Delhi police in March last year. Supreme Court has refused to stay a CCI order against Google, asking Google to deposit 10%, that is 1,338 crore rupee fine imposed by the CCI within a week. In a shocking announcement, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has declared that she will be tendering her resignation from office in a matter of weeks. In a big push for green technology in commercial flights, NASA and Boeing are reportedly working together on a sustainable flight demonstrator project.
इन केस आप मिलेनियन वाली जनरेशन से हैं तो आपने शायद वो गाना सुना होगा, देखा जो तुझे यार दिल में बजी गिटार। सो कुछ ऐसे अगर आप मूड में हैं तो यहाँ पे ये गिटार की स्ट्रिंग्स टाइप दी गई हैं, एग्जैक्टली स्ट्रिंग्स नहीं है बट ऐसे कुछ मूड में है तो आप इनका इस्तेमाल उस समय जरूर कर सकते हैं। अब आप समझ गए होंगे कि गाड़ी कौन सी है, हाल ही में इसका लॉन्च हुआ था, ये है BYD की Atto 3 और क्या परफॉर्मेंस, क्या रेंज, क्या डिजाइन, क्या फीचर्स BYD अपने इस इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल में दे रहा है, उन सभी के बारे में मैं आपसे बात करने वाला हूं इस वीडियो में। और वीडियो के अंत में हमेशा की तरह बात करेंगे 3 धांसू और 3 नॉट धांसू एलिमेंट्स मुझे क्या लगे इस BYD Atto 3 के बारे में। तो चलिए शुरुआत करते हैं। तो शुरुआत कर लेते हैं इस Atto 3 के डिजाइन वाले एस्पेक्ट से। तो फ्रंट में BYD का कहना है ये गाड़ी का डिजाइन जो है ओवरऑल ड्रैगन इंस्पायर्ड है, चाइनीज ब्रांड है, तो कुछ वैसा ही एसेंस BYD कह रही है हमने इस गाड़ी के डिजाइन और स्टाइलिंग में देने की कोशिश करी है। हालांकि ड्रैगन इंस्पायर्ड तो मुझे फ्रंट ज़्यादा नहीं लग रहा है, बट फिर भी यहाँ पे सेंटर में बड़ा सा BYD का लोगो है, क्रोम का एलिमेंट दिया गया है थ्रू आउट जो जाता है इसके फ्रंट हेडलाइट के ऊपर से सेंटर तक। एंड हेडलाइट जो हैं क्रिस्टल LED कॉम्बिनेशन लाइट्स यहाँ पर इसमें देखने को मिल रही हैं। एंड DRL देख रहे हैं, देखने में खूबसूरत ही काफ़ी लग रहा है। इसका फ्रंट जो लाइट का सेक्शन है काफ़ी स्लीक कॉम्पैक्ट इसका हेडलाइट का डिज़ाइन लग रहा है। एंड जो टर्न इंडिकेटर्स हैं वो भी इसके DRL में ही इंटीग्रेटेड हैं, तो यहाँ पे जब इसको टर्न इंडिकेटर ऑन होंगे तो ये DRL टर्न इंडिकेटर का काम भी करेगा। इसके अलावा इलेक्ट्रिक गाड़ी है तो फ्रंट में